All right, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is the strength of my Redeemer, and it's in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect this message. Amen. Amen. All right. Hello, everybody. As you can see, still on the road. Still on the road. Still traveling. Trying to make it to the next destination. So, y'all keep us in prayer as we continue to try and make sure that we are on track. But thank you for being on with us and being patient with us and taking some time out to continue to learn and grow with us. Hey, Supreme Rising there, Dawn. How you doing? So yeah, we're trying to continue the Revelation series, and we'll see. It might be, since it's been a little while since I ended up not being able to get on Monday, and we're gonna try and get some stuff on for Tuesday. Or I'm sorry, we came on Tuesday, but yesterday was a day where we were basically just doing it ended up being about giving out to people and schedule and work to where we could really do a live that was very focused on anything. We'll see where we end up today. Might do a little catch up. Those of you who are waiting for those of you who are waiting for us to get to what is it I'm trying to say? Y'all forgive me. Hold on. Those of you who are trying to get to, hold on one second. That we missed our early riser session on Monday. We're going to make sure we flip that to Friday. Just to let you know, I'm going to try and reach out to a few of you today. Going to be all over the place today. So trying to reach out to a few of you that we're supposed to have something set up today. We might have to move it because I'm still on the road. That being stuck in the snow and then having to get the tire fixed, and then still trying to make sure everything was done for the drive yesterday. There's a lot going on that we're still trying to catch up on. It seems like we're always playing catch up, and then when we get close to catching up, there's always something. But we're thankful for you guys and for your patience, and thank you for you guys who hung in there yesterday. There was a faithful few that always y'all tend to hang in there and hung in there, even with us having to do a lot of different things simultaneously. But we thank you. We appreciate it. We appreciate you. We appreciate you guys for hanging in there with us and loving on us and praying for us and all this great stuff. Thank you for those who are on the podcast, TikTok, YouTube, etc. We're grateful. I am trying to find one item that, and all this stuff that I've got. When you're on the road, you accumulate all this stuff. You got to figure out where stuff is. There we go. But we're thankful and grateful to be on with you all. Once again, we give all praise to the Most High. Thank you, Minister Nice. We give all praise and honor to him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can follow her on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A-N-D, but the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. We're thankful and grateful for family, for friends, for our Israelite family, community, etc. And we're just going to kind of flow this rise. And we've been talking about Revelation. We had a little break. And so just to kind of make sure that we get back on track. I see you too, DMB. Thanks for being on. And by the way, for everybody, I don't know if I missed any of you. Hello, King. Was it King Gohan? Is it Ty's Gifted Hands? I was going to say Thais, but looks like Ty's Gifted Hands. Shalom, Christine. Sharice, how you doing? Brother Clem. Little Red Diamond. You've been patient with me probably more than anybody else as of recently. So thank you. I hope and pray that you're feeling better. Those of you who've been praying for us, dealing with stuff, family, death in the family, all types of stuff popping up all at the same time, being stranded on the road a little bit during our latest travels. We're thankful and grateful for you guys. We know you've been keeping us in prayer. I know some of y'all didn't even sleep until you heard that we were okay. I mean, that's just amazing at what y'all would do and how y'all would use us as a community. Is always a blessing. And I'm telling you right now, it's been a little tough these last few days. But I'm excited whenever it gets a little tough, because that's usually a sign that it's time for us to grind a little harder, and that he has something, planned for us. So, y'all keep us in prayer, and keep each other in prayer. If you guys know, by the way, we're getting a lot of people who have been dealing with different things who want to start working from home and things like that. If you guys come up with anything or see anything that we can put out to people, as far as any links, or send to people, that when we get people saying, do we know anything about job opportunities, things like that, where they can work from home, whether it's because of COVID issues or just because, it's hard and tough on people, some people handicapped, etc. Let us know if you don't mind keeping that in mind for us, and we'll make sure that we can help as many people in our community as possible. As we grow, hopefully we'll be able to give a little more. Thank you guys, by the way, who've been helping out, helped us to feed the brother and his boys. At the coat drive, you guys gave to, we didn't expect children, we were told children were going to show up, but we had some little boys that showed up with a couple families, and we were able to, okay. We had a couple boys that showed up that needed some things, and we were able to be a blessing. So we want you to know that you guys were helping the babies out too. It wasn't just the elders and the people in the nursing home. And so we thank you for that too. That was a blessing, where we had some little boys walking away with a whole trash bag full of clothes. Not just even coats, but clothes. So we weren't expecting to do that on this coat drive, but we're grateful and thankful we were able to do that for everybody. But once again, thank you. You guys have seen this, been busy all over the place, a lot of stuff going on. Hey, shalom to Shantae, to Erica. Hey, Ransom, how you doing? So we appreciate it. You said they don't hate our skin, they hate our bloodline. Well, there's truth in both, right? The skin helps to, the skin color in this context, right? When we're talking about Revelation, the skin color kind of helps to identify. Is that the only identification? However, it's something that helps to identify because the Bible uses it as such, right? And so it's the bloodline, yeah. It's like, even if people don't want to talk about canonical viewpoint, biblical viewpoint, a lot of times people are missing the boat, even if we go outside of that, like when we're dealing with people who don't like us to call each other kings and queens. When somebody doesn't like us to say, what's up, king? What's up, queen? That's because, what does that mean? That means you got a bloodline that goes back to royalty. This is why the African American thing has been set up since the 1980s. Was it 1979, 1978? But definitely by 1980s. Jesse Jackson starts hitting you with African American. They started trying to hit you with Afro-American. It was something that was kind of sort of bubbling up, but it was never really something that was just taken on, but then it became a full-out campaign. The reason why is if you can take away, because really what happens is they try to make a demarcation. They try to say there's a difference between the African American and the African, and they definitely don't want you to talk about there being solidarity between the native, the indigenous American, and the African American, because really, a lot of us, if you do blood work, a lot of you are going to find out that you have indigenous roots, right? If you look at, if you just look at your history, so many people in our families, we grew up with family members telling us, yeah, we're Blackfoot, we're Sioux, we're Crow, we're Choctaw, we're Khalifa, all these things, we're Gullah, and people, we just kind of lost it, or we were so much being taught self-hate that we never even, we never even took that as something that, was solid. The reality is, though, is that we are those things. We are Gullah. We are Seminole, right? Seminole is so many mix of so many different things anyways nowadays, right? Yeah, hallelujah. Amen, DNB, right? Hey, shalom, everybody coming on. Shalom, Marshall. I see you on there. Shalom, Sister Tracy. I believe I see you on there, and Deborah, right? And we are all these things. And if somebody can convince you that you are not these things, remember we talked about there's self-control. If I can take self out of the equation, the only thing left is control. If there's self-control and I take away self, the only thing left now is control. And this is one of the biggest things that happens when we have these conversations. It's the same with anybody. If we want to get outside of black culture, we can discuss this as far as anything. If you take an Irish and make them an Irish American, most Irish Americans have no clue. Outside of saying that there's a possibility they have a bloodline that goes back to Ireland, they're not sitting there talking about free dairy or Londonderry. They don't even know what the difference is. They wouldn't tell you. If they were to comprehend Irish culture, not only would they say Black Lives Matter, they would say that Blue Lives Matter. Hey, babe, my wife is on once again. Check out my wife, the Honorable Maya Bloom and Flourish. You can check out not A-N-D, but the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. Check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest. And thanks for being on, babe. Love you so much. Thank you for everything that you do. Remember, the tincture of the month is I Am Immune. And she's out here traveling with me everywhere we go. We're going together. So thankful for her and her sacrifice, and her sometimes being very uncomfortable to make sure that the mission is being taken care of. So we appreciate it and appreciate her. And I want to show much love to her. Right. So, and all these things we're talking about, like, think about that. The bloodline is crucial, and where you come from is crucial. Think about how many Irish Americans forget that Irish and Black people actually got mixed and put in breeding camps together. Right. How many people don't know about the Isle of Montserrat, where you have literally Black slaves and what ended up being Irish slaves, all things put together, living together and growing together as a community. The Irish having love for the Choctaw having love for the Irish. A lot of people don't know these things, so when you don't have a sense of self as an Irish American, you forget that some of the biggest slave revolts that happened in the beginning were Irish people working with Black people, even if the Irish people were indentured servants. And yes, indentured servants were treated differently in different places. Nevertheless, though, the Irish saw the mistreatment of native people and African people who were being brought over in ships. And they said, you know what, enough is enough. They fought with us. Even in our family, we have family members who literally had Irish blood, where Irish people were killed because they decided to stay with Black people in relationships and raise babies, and had their own family members killed, were told, get out of town, still stayed there, made sure they took care of the babies, died, but their babies lived because they stayed there long enough to make sure their babies survived, right? Like, we don't comprehend this stuff. So if you miss that, you'll do this thing of all white people are evil. And even you'll do a thing on the flip side. Irish Americans, hey, we did it, we got ourselves together. No, a lot of the people who made it, they had to make a conscious decision, right? They had to make a conscious decision to where this term white was being thrown around. And so they said, hey, Irish people, you can be white instead of being Irish, because Irish was low on the totem pole, right? The English hated the Irish, right? And they mistreated the Irish. Then they came over, they still mistreated the Irish. The Irish started fighting with Africans. They said, okay, to stop this, to squash the beef, you make a decision. Do you want to be treated like slaves, or do you want to just be poor white folk and see what you can do? Irish people said, you know what? We're going to take care of our family, and I can't be too angry at them for that. Can't be angry at all of them for that. Like, they made a decision concerning their people, and they did what they had to do. An ally, that's why I try to tell people all the time, an ally is different, than somebody who's going to be fighting with you in the front line. You can have an ally, like, they're allies with the English, but it doesn't mean the English are going to come into America and fight injustices that on American ground, right? Like, they have their own country, and America has their own country. So the Irish made a decision. But even still, they would still pop up to fight for Black people from time to time, all the way from Canada all the way down to Mexico. Still fighting in places like Nigeria and stuff today to help African people against tyrants and things like that. And so you got to be, we got to be aware of those things, right? I'm sorry, I missed some comments, I guess. Let me see. Hey, Dofos, how you doing? Is this a generalization? Is what a generalization? We talking about the Irish? Which part? You said, when you guys gonna get over the race stuff? It's really getting old. Literally, I'm telling you why we should comprehend that not everybody that's white is evil. And you're sitting up here talking about how to get over it. We get over it by making sure that we don't do what you're doing, which is, hey, you guys. I literally just said there's people working together, right? But people don't want to hear that. So literally, I'm telling you, there's Irish and Black people who work together. Don't label all Irish people as such. We've talked about John Brown on here. Don't label all white people as such. There's some Black people on here that just because they're Black, I wouldn't say that they're people we need to be around. People like Topher Town Music and whatever, the Christian Walker and Candace Owens, and all these people that are concerned about making sure that they get handouts and people just giving them pats on the back, right? So you got to be careful about that, because even Revelation, in the series we've been talking about, Revelation is telling you that, yeah, Israel needs to be sealed, but it also says once Israel is sealed, Israel is a conduit. That being sealed is helping people and teaching people as a conduit into them being able to be adopted and be grafted in, right? That's still the ultimate goal, is that it's not Yahweh's will that any should perish, but that all would have everlasting life. All is all. Not all Israel, not Israel only, all is all, but you got to maintain what the word says. So when somebody comes on here and says, I wish I would leave the race stuff alone, you're not talking about me. First of all, I didn't start the race thing. And secondly, I'm not the one that started acting like we shouldn't see color, because whether you like race being discussed or race not being discussed, at the end of the day, it's a social construct. The social construct has therefore made it a reality, where people are raised with this, whether you like it or not. There are children there are something that happens quite often is that you'll have a white parent that's married to a black parent. They have children, and they'll even say, like, I have black children, but they'll say, I don't teach my black children that they're worthless or this and that or whatever. Even if they don't, guess what's going to happen? They're going to get to a place in life where somebody's going to address them as a black child. Even if they don't call their child black, that they call them mixed, if they don't say anything about it, at some point it's going to happen where they're going to run into this social construct. And if you're not willing to talk about the social construct, you ain't willing to talk about change. You said, as an Irish third generation, I appreciate this. Yeah, most of a lot of people don't know, and on the first Kofi Ofori page, this is number 3, because they keep taking down anything we put up, and they're literally trying to find every excuse. Now I'm actually behind on that. We should have already started Kofi_44 so we can be ready. Once they shut this down, we can just go live on the next one. So when I start that one, I'm going to be more motivational, and try to be nice and make sure some stuff there so there's no violations. And as soon as we need to go over, we'll just shift videos over and talk about things over there, and we'll keep on going, right? It's sad that we have to do stuff like that, but that's the way it is. And the very person on here, and it's interesting, would tell me, stop talking about race, won't talk about the fact that if I simply don't curse, I say that we should love everyone, I say that we should be honest about things, and we should attack the very nonsensical place of racism, somebody will attack me and say, you guys talk about race too much. I didn't create racism. Watch this. I don't really care if CRT is taught in school. I know some people get mad at me for that. I don't really care, because it's still a theory. I need you to teach facts. I don't need you to teach theory, critical race theory and all this. Theories can be based off of fact, but theories are not necessarily fact. I need you to teach truth. I need you to teach our story instead of his story. I need you to teach the story instead of his story. It doesn't even need to be my story or our story. It needs to be the story. When you teach that, that's what's going on. And that's part of the reasons why people even missed us up with Revelation. Henry said, hey, you did a great job blessing the people yesterday. Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. And that really was my wife's stuff. My wife is the one that does ChangingLinesInitiative.org. I just simply help her. So I'm thankful and grateful for her putting things in order and helping us to be able to bless the people. And I forget the sister's name, or the lady's name. It's like, well, she has like what we would consider to be a man's name or something, or a male name, but it's like Alex or something like that. But whatever her name is, appreciate her too. Generalization of Irish is treated lowly in respects of how they were viewed, because you're talking about, well, so the Irish, I mean, it's still an interesting story. There's like, to say that every Irish person it's like saying every black person is a revolutionary. To say that every Irish person supported black people is a little much. But at the same time, to act like, I can just tell you from experience, the love that I've been shown from Ireland, personally, and the stuff that they appreciate, like, I would say outside of Ghana, I'm just keeping it 100. Some people might not like me saying this. Well, now I got to change this up. Outside of Israel, right, and outside of Ghana, I would say third on the list as far as the people I've been treated the best by, hospitality, stuff like that, wanting us to come over, waiting to make sure like we weren't going to have to take care of anything, people wanting us over their homes, all that stuff. I would say hands down, like the Irish, definitely third on their list. Just facts. Like the way being treated and stuff. So there's a lot of generalizations on a lot of different sides. It's not as simple as like every Irish person is great, every blah, blah, blah. But even Irish people, they stay away from, because they don't like to compare oppression. So if you start talking about slavery, they'll be quick to say, we were never slaves. But the reality is, like, English people had slaves in England that were Irish. They had slaves in Ireland that were Irish. They put them in debt. By definition, when you put people in debt, you make them a slave to you, but we won't go there. Some people don't like that. Did they ever have chattel slavery to the level that black people did? Maybe not, but we're not going to act like they didn't have women that were raped. We're not going to act like they didn't have people, like that the king didn't make decrees. Now, he did it more in Scotland, or England did it more in Scotland, I guess, than Ireland. But there were decrees out there like, hey, we'll go ahead and, let them loot you. We'll let the men rape your women, do a lot of stuff like that. So even if we don't want to call it slavery in name, the Irish did go through a lot that we went through, right? And so we have to be honest about that. And Betty said, yes, that is very true. Wise for all the white parents to be cognizant of what they teach. Yeah. Said it's sad, but thank you for continuing. Amen. It's our pleasure. So and all this stuff that we're talking about, even in Revelation, it comes from a mindset. Like, you gotta be honest about this stuff. Even Revelation is honest about it. Revelation 1:14 and 15, honest about color. Revelation 2:9, honest about lineage. Revelation, Revelation 12 to about 18 or 19 or so, where it's talking. Revelation 1. 12 to like 18 and verse 18 and 19 or so, where it's talking about the Nicolaitans and the people of Balaam, where you're legit talking about a whole doctrine that was created to attack Israel specifically. And people don't want to talk about that, but it's in the Bible. It's in your Bible. That's why we say read your Bible. It'll bless you. It might have been Scotty. Yeah, there you you weren't even there, was listening in. Yeah, I think it was Scotty. That was her name. Amen, Henry. Yep, got to give my wife props. It's her operation. I'm just here to help. Said I am Irish 50%. It was unknown or unspoken in our family. Okay. Yeah, so, there's a lot of stuff that goes there. Hey, Shima, how you doing? There's a lot of stuff that operates there and goes into that. And when we talk about Revelation, that's why, once again, it's always contextual facts. People are trying to talk about Revelation without any context. And they're trying to talk about Revelation really without dealing with the facts in there, right? Revelation 2:9 that we talked about, Revelation 2:12 onward, Revelation 3:7, literally talking about the key of David, or David, which means beloved, by the way. So the son of David comes out of a beloved lineage, which is why Revelation 3:9, you see this play on words again. That's why the word of Yah is so amazing. Like, then you see him come back after saying that he has the key of David, which means he's beloved. And he says, I'm going to show the synagogue about Satan that I've always loved you. Meaning that you were always the key. You were always the key. You were always the key to this thing. Which by the time you get to Revelation 7, you're going to say, oh, okay, wow. So we're the key. And if we're not sealed, then nobody gets in. Because David, Judah, the line of the tribe of Judah, the son of David, the one who holds the key of David, he is the key. And nobody wants to talk about this. Is one of the missing pieces, is that all the stuff that's going on is that there's a doctrine, Balaam, to attack who? More than anybody else, right? Like, if they don't, like people that are, have you ever thought about the fact that people that are ignorant will think that somebody who's coming over from Africa has no ties to Israel, right? Even though, what we call modern Israelites, I guess, they would, even though they're not really Israel, but you know what I'm saying, like people who are in Israel at the moment, they will even though they call them Beta Israel, they will admit that there are Africans that are of Hebrew heritage. They try to say Jewish heritage, but it's the flip side, right? So if they'll even admit that, right, and there's doctrine to attack it, have you ever thought about the fact that you can have a black person come over from Africa and come here, and they'll usually deal with less racism from white people than a black person from here, right? There's context to it, because the black person from here is thought to be more of a threat. Now, why is that ultimately, right? And I'm gonna stop using the term, well, I don't know if I'm gonna use apocrypha. Like, I've got to study the term apocrypha. I might start, let me just say this. I know what people mean when they say apocrypha, but I've kind of known this for a while, but now as I've done a lot more study and been getting into things, and I told you I've been studying a lot more Greco-Roman stuff as of late, the word apocrypha or apocryphal, I don't know if it originally meant this. It has begun to mean, like people have started using the last 100 years or so. When they say apocrypha, they'll say apocrypha as if it means it's not true. So like if they're talking about, like I was watching a thing on Hitler, and they said like Hitler said some things that were apocryphal. And I was like, apocryphal? Because I wasn't used to people using it like that. So I was like, no, Hitler wasn't spitting anything from the apocrypha. So what do they mean? And they use apocryphal to mean like it's mythical. It's made up. Right? So before we can even get into these things, we have to deal with the context of this stuff. Right? So like even the term apocrypha, some people don't believe in apocrypha because the term apocrypha has been turned into it's fake. It's not real. So some people hear apocrypha and you have it in you, whether you know it or not. It's been kind of like put in you over time that anything that's apocryphal is a terrible thing. You say, is it grand that all nations are coming together in these final part of the days of wickedness? Well, that's a sign that we need to be ready for the last days, everybody coming together. The Bible says like when everybody comes together and is screaming peace, right? That's when you need to pay attention, because it's not, peace is not a bad thing, but it's peace concerning what, right? Like, is it going to be peace as far as we'll lock everybody up if they don't get a vaccine, right? Will it be peace as long as there's one world religion? Will it be peace as long as the Pope can be in charge? That 11th horn that knocked out 3 horns in Daniel chapter 7, right? Like, what kind of peace? Is it peace that gives us the Antichrist spirit that raises up a government to where everybody keeps saying, do whatever the government says, do whatever the government says, do whatever the president says, do whatever the presidential candidate says, do whatever the mayor says, right? Like, where is the peace coming from? That's going to be the point of it. Oh, thank you, Rose. Appreciate it. Thank you. Is it Soina or Sonia? Is it Soina? Soina love life always, or Sona love life always? I apologize for mispronouncing it. You have a great day as well, Mass. Yeah, so originally you would think like it was hidden, but I'm just saying over time it's kind of become, so I'm doing some research now. I think it's more so just means hidden, but I think it didn't even originally mean hidden. Like apa doesn't really mean that it's hidden. More so like apostasy doesn't mean, it's the same kind of word. So I'm gonna do some research on it. But I'm just saying, like, a lot of people have now started using apocrypha to mean like it's not true. So when they go back in history, it's Sonia. Okay, cool. I'll try to remember that. But thank you for being on. Thanks for being part of the community. Thanks for being an amazing person, all of you. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into this, right? So what is this, part 8 of the Revelation series? So when we're talking about a lot of this stuff, we're dealing with so many different things. We'll kind of dive a little bit into chapter 6, I guess. We'll dive in a little bit to chapter 6 today. But we have to set those things up, because once again, Revelation is not a one-off. It's not a one-off as far as the Torah, or what we call the Bible, the Biblios, and it's not a one-off concerning the story of mankind. Everything is going together. Everything is flowing together, and it has to be a cultural comprehension, right? It has to be a kingdom psychology attached to it. And, we are kings and queens who are separated from the idea of monarchy. So we're kings and queens separated from sovereignty. We talked a little bit about this yesterday, I believe. How are you able to be a monarch and be a king under the king, be a queen under the king, be a child of the king and be a fellow heir, but you don't know about sovereignty, you don't know about monarchy, you don't know about where you come from as far as your bloodlines, as far as who was king over what, etc. Exactly, Brother Dennis, and separated from our culture. And Grand Rising to you, Brother Dennis. Know the story, not his story. Exactly. We want to know our story. We want to know the story, not his story. And because his story says you got to be African American. African American only starts 1980s, 1970s. And just like there's Jet Magazine, for example, how do you not go past a little bit back further? That the same way Jet looks like, with the little red square or rectangle, whatever it is, and you have jet. You have then you also had magazines that looked like that said copper, because even in the 1900s we still preferred, some people preferred to be called copper colored. Now, is that not interesting? Because according to the original definition of what an American is, the original definition of an American is a copper colored person that is indigenous to America or to Turtle Island. Right? So when we're having this conversation, we're oftentimes going outside of context to have it. Yeah, well, it wasn't even created. Well, Shay, it wasn't even created by Jesse Jackson. It was actually created by Jesse Jackson's handlers, which is the problem. You know, like that's the problem with it. And thank you, moderators. I don't see every comment on there, but I see you guys doing a great job. Thank you. You said that's why Africans are treated different. They know they're not African American, right? Well, that too. That's a great point too. And Africans aren't going to act African American. They're not going to act American. They're going to act African. Some of them even using Israelite, actions and doctrine. What's one of the things that we forget? We had this weird thing too, where it's like we have to be careful that we don't fall into Willie Lynch syndrome. A lot of black people in America who are saying that I see my Israelite roots will then turn on an African and say we're not African. But it's like, well, first of all, know your bloodline. You can't say that you're Israel without talking about Kemet and talking about Cush and talking about West Africa all up and down. That's Zechariah, right? So you can, you can't talk about that. You can't talk about it without talking about, and when we say Cush, that's what, Ethiopia, South Sudan, you have to be honest about Canaanites, Canaan, the people of Canaan, Carthaginians, Moors, therefore, like that's all your people. So you can't separate yourself from who you are, right? Once again, if you have no sense of self, all that there is control. And so that's one of the things that happens with us in these camps or just places of worship, that people have, where people literally are separating themselves from their own people. And then but you got to do some research. Some of the places that you'll discover that people talk about Israel, the true Israelites, are people who are in Africa, Ethiopians, as well, because that's who you're talking about as far as Sheba, Queen Sheba, right? That's where that lineage goes. That's why Selassie was such a big deal. And eventually they killed off even though his children are still around. I won't get into the details in case somebody on here is trying to search for people still, but I know people who know the bloodline, the people who are still alive from Selassie's bloodline, right? So I've never met the bloodline personally. I just happen to know people who have participated in either hiding them or have had even relationships or friendships, stuff like that with them. So we know the bloodline still is alive, right? So bloodlines are crucial, as somebody brought up earlier. I can't remember which I believe it was one of the brothers on here. I can't remember who brought it up earlier, but that's one of the things that's going on, right? And you've got to take people out. You've got to take people away from themselves. Remember, if you have no sense, if there's self-control, and I take away self, the only thing left is control. And that's what we're dealing with a lot of times. Thank you, Minister Tamara. You're here to kick those imps out. Amen. Shalom, Becky. How you doing? You said, what about what we have been educated to understand? Africa is a continent with many different countries. Yeah, I mean, first of all, there's many different countries. Second of all, I would even say go past the countries. One of the things that actually prevents Africans coming together is the countries. And somebody's going to say, what do you mean? I need you to comprehend that what is there now on paper was not there before. So the country of Egypt is different than Kemet, right? And the tribe of Cush and is different than Ethiopia and different than South Sudan, right? Or Sudan, or even Republic of Congo. Zulu is different than South Africa. There's two different nations. Right now, all of the new ones, Ghana, there was an original Ghana. Now there's new Ghana, which I know somebody will argue, hey, well, it was Kwame Nkrumah who made it a point to say, hey, we want to, and others that came together said we want to rename our region Ghana. But remember, before that, like Ghana was up further, and actually Ghana comes out of part of the territory that once was Mali, where Mansa Musa was over, right? And that's attached heavily to before Timbuktu, which was actually created by a woman. An African woman. So, and even the term Africa, people will be like, oh, that came from Scipio Africanus and all these other people, but they named themselves African because there was a tribe of people called Afrique. So even that was taken from a group of people. So what we have today is something that's totally different. So one of the things that a lot of people are trying to get people to do in Africa or on the motherland now is to say, hey, get back to your tribe, just like we're talking about. Get back to your original tribe. Get back to your original group of people who were together. Have pride in that. And as a group of people, now start protecting your tribes together as one big tribe, whether we call it the Israelite diaspora, the African diaspora, the black diaspora, whatever. Start doing that, right? Native Americans, for those of us who have both in us, or those of you who might be native only, whatever, that's something that's happening on that side too, right? Get back to your tribe, your way of life before somebody took it. Okay, thank you, Real Red. Yeah, they are. So yeah, these are things that are going on, and we don't have the context of it. Hey, is it Shantae Dobbs? Shantae? It's the Grand Rising Kofi. I want to ask if you can, is it any way I can talk with you and your wife more about Revelation? Sure, DM us, or when we put the information up to be able to reach out to us, you can feel free. Sometimes others in the chat will actually put our information out there for us. You can go on TikTok on our page and look in the bio, and also look in the website. On the website, we have a link tree. So in the link tree, there's tons of different things you can go to be able to catch us. Yeah, Benin, all that too. Yeah, somebody said Benin on there. Most definitely. So in the Benin Empire, that's where you have the largest wall to ever be created. That's where you have the largest wall to ever be created is by the Benin Empire. Yet people think that the Great Wall of China is the biggest one, and they even lie about that. They say you can see it from space. That's what they used to try and tell you and stuff. You can't see that from space. But the Great Wall of Benin, now that's crucial, right? Benin in and of itself, I forget now, so forgive me, I'm gonna mess this up. But Benin is something wild, like you could walk, not in the whole, what I guess we call it country, but in like a city, I think in their main city, something like that was so big that you could walk, like it would be the equivalent if you were trying to go from like the north to the south. It'd be like walking from New York City, or maybe even upstate New York, and trying to come all the way down to like Virginia, or at least like the DMV, that area, like something like that. Like that was like a city that we had, right? And if I can take you away from your mindset of your city and the mindset of yourself, then I take you to a place to where you think that you're nothing. How many of us, when we think about our generations, we're trying to figure out just how we can get back to slavery, rather than thinking about the fact that you come from kings and queens. Once again, you say, what's up, king? What's up, queen? And a lot of people will tell you, oh no, you're not kings, you're not queens, you from here, you're African American, that's past, let that go. Kings are tyrants. No, our kings weren't tyrants, right? Your kings were tyrants when they came and enslaved. Like your queen, England, your queen was a tyrant when she sent the first slave ship over to Africa and called it Jesus. That's the reason why. See, there's reasons people need to comprehend this stuff, or we probably would have called it yeses, but nevertheless, she called it Jesus. We don't want to have that conversation though, because then that means that there's reasons for us, besides just the fact that his name, obviously in Hebrew, there's no letter J, and the letter J didn't even exist until like the people will fight for maybe the 1600s. I would say probably 1700s, but nevertheless, the letter J wasn't created until around that time, and wasn't even used, because it was something that they were trying to force into being used. So the letter J wasn't even something being used until like mid 1700s, late 1700s. So you had a queen that literally built a slave ship, didn't use the name Yashva anyways, because that's the name of who the original Yashva was. They used a nickname, meaning half man, half Zeus, which is what they're into. And they ended up using it and saying, we're going to go ahead and make slaves in the name of Jesus, or in the name of Jesus, rather than Atshem Yashva, right? That's a different culture. But people don't want to have that conversation. So of course, people take what you did and they change it up, they flip it, and then they say it's okay to flip it on you. Then when you say, I want to take self back, which means I'm going to take self-control back, they say, no, we can't have you have a sense of self. Now we're going to fight you on everything that has to do with self. Willie Lynch says that. again, going back to Willie Lynch syndrome series that we had. And so, hey, shalom, Chef, how you doing? Going back there, Willie Lynch made it a point to say that every time that your mind, he said this is how the human mind worked. They had people that studied us, and they said that every time that anybody is introduced to the truth, their mind tries to readjust and renew itself, right? Whenever there's anything tangible, the mind doesn't deal with cognitive dissonance that well. And so unless the person's willing to stay in cognitive dissonance, the mind is going to try to get them to get out of that and to be in truth and to be in righteousness. Righteousness just literally meaning right legal standing, to figure out who they really are legally. Because when we're talking about who somebody is, the part of the discussion people don't want to have is that we have to talk about legally. That's why law is important. We're talking about legal standing. So legally, who are you? Right? When you know who you are, you are a legal person. When you can't say who you are an illegal person. Right? When you don't know where you are, and if you're in somebody else's, like, think about this. If you're in somebody else's land, right? You hear what I'm saying? If I'm in somebody else's land, right, then I am an immigrant. They have to allow me in. If I am illegally in somebody else's land, then I am an illegal immigrant or an illegal alien. Now, what if I was illegally taken from where I was supposed to be and I was brought over here? Can I even legally be what they try to call an African American? Or would I legally be what I was before you took me? Right? Which is why, see, I'm just going to, like I said, we're going to flow. I don't know where this is going to end up. We're going to flow though, all right? And thank you so much to the moderators, because you guys allowing us to flow like this, right? But we're going to flow. Watch this. Well, let's put a salah right there. Let's put a pin in that. Let me catch up on some comments real quick. As always, you got in the background, learning some amazing things. Oh, thank you, Sister Sonia. Appreciate it. How many times? I've been a few times. I've only stayed a long time once. The few times I came before was I've been there a few times with the military, and it was just real quick. I think only one time actually even setting foot on the land, even though I could see the land and stuff. But just because you go to land doesn't mean you get to always get off and board, rather board, to go on to land. However, the last time would have been 2018, I guess. Actually, 2018 or 2019. 2018. Wow, it's been a while. And then especially with all this stuff, we were planning on going back. We were trying to get people to sign up and save up money and stuff, and we were going to try and do it $2,000 a person and have a bunch of us go together and save up for a little bit. We might still try to do the same thing, but we got to see what is going on, because a lot of European places and countries are trying to say that African lands you can't go to, so we'd have to figure out a different way of getting through there. We could possibly go to a Caribbean nation and take flight from there. And it's actually faster that way, but they normally don't let you do it that way, and it's more expensive. They do that on purpose so that, it's less expensive to go all the way to Europe, take 12-hour flight and stuff over there, and then take another 12, 13, 14, 18, 19-hour flight, whatever, over to certain places in Africa. But it's actually quicker to where you could probably make it less than 10 hours, I believe, if you just went from the Caribbean over there. And you can actually fly from East Coast to the Caribbean. I mean, heck, if you're in Florida, you could fly over to the Caribbean an hour something like that. But you could easily make that trip. But we were thinking about it, but it's been a while. Thank you, Shima. Appreciate it. That Jesus Christ is the one true Son of the one true God, Alpha and Omega, none before and none after. First of all, his name is his position is Elohim. God is a Germanic term, is a Germanic deity. So we call him by what he wanted to be called, which is Elohim. The Barashit, is Genesis, because you don't speak the original language, or you choose not to be in it. The original language says Barashit, Bara Elohim, At Shemayim, At Aretz, meaning that in the beginning, Elohim created the heaven or toward the earth. That's actually how it would be translated. And his name would have been Yahweh, or some people would say Yahweh, or now people use the letter J, Jehovah and stuff like that. The reason why we don't get into God versus Elohim is because God can be whatever you want it to be. God is an ideal with an L on it, IDEAL. So in idealism, it's a system where you can do whatever you want with information. It doesn't have to be real. We choose to be with Elohim. Elohim means we have to be focused and we have to be honest and we have to say this is who he is. And we can't shift to the left or to the right. And but we believe that Yahshua is the manifestation of Elohim, the Son, Ba, right? And we believe that it's Ruach HaKodesh who led him into the wilderness and allowed him to and allow people to be able to be aware of who he is, and to even have, who we call Peter today, Simon Peter, who we call Simon Peter today, for him to be able to have even the revelations that he had. So, yeah. If you choose to say, Jesus Christ, and choose to do the letter J thing and choose to keep calling him something that he's never said his name was, and that Pontius Pilate actually gave him that nickname on the cross. If you do some study, then you can do that. That's up to you. You don't have to, but you can do whatever you want. You have free will. Exactly. So if you were getting back to what we were talking about before, right? If you are an immigrant, so to speak, now a lot of us have native blood anyways. Which means that Israel, if you know about Taino people and Christopher Columbus and Hebrew interpreter and all that, your people are already here. Never, right? And he's not the Alpha and the Omega, he's the Aleph and the Tav, exactly, Sister Shima, right? But if you recognize this stuff about yourself, this is why people get upset and frustrated and all that, because now you're starting to recognize self. There's less control over you. You have more free will. You have more freedom to do things. But once again, getting back to what we were talking about. So if somebody takes me from a land and brings me somewhere where it's not mine, then I'm illegally basically I'm a prisoner of war. Now, one of the things that's interesting though is, since a lot of us are from here too, what's happened is that we've actually been taught that we are less legal. But here's the deal. You have to see, we've talked about a lot of this stuff before, but hopefully you guys are starting to see all this stuff come together, right? We talked about this stuff before. You got to see this come together. If I'm going to colonize a place, when in the history of colonization, you can go all the way back if you want to Alexander the Great, who they call Alexander the Great. But if you want to go back to Alexander, if you want to go to King, his father, King Philip, if you want to go to Xerxes, if you want to go to Xerxes' father, I'm forgetting his name right now, starts with a D, I believe. If you want to go back to Kemet, if you want to go back to Assyria, if you want to go back to Babylon, whatever it is, wherever it is that you want to go, if you want to go back to Nimrod, whatever. I need you to comprehend colonization is key. This is why you got to learn kingdom. People think that America is different because, America doesn't have colonies. America has territories. What are territories? They're colonies. America doesn't have a king. What is a president? A president is a head of state. If you look up a head of state, you'll figure out that a president and a king and a queen and an emperor can all be a head of state, which means that the president is a king, but the president is ruled by other people who have money. That's the definition from capitalism. Capitalism, by definition, is a system in which politics and economics are used to control trade and industry, and trade and industry is controlled by the corporations rather than by the state. So if you have a head of state that's the president and he's supposed to be the king, all he is a face. He's a representative. He's a fake king. It's like when Alexander or when Caesar or whomever would go somewhere and they'd say, okay, we'll take this king off the throne, we'll put somebody else. Matter of fact, if you study Queen Nzinga, her brother was actually, she was forced out of her queendom. Her brother's put on the throne. I think it's by the Dutch, but I'm not sure. I could be off on that. The Dutch, the Portuguese, something in there. And then her brother's put on the throne. So her brother is always in fear because he knows that his sister's going to be coming for him because he's just a fake king for these for these colonizers. As a colonizer, you have to keep the people who had the power in some kind of fake governance, right? You hear what I'm saying? Right? You gotta keep them in some kind of fake governance. That's how colonization works. Colonization is not a straight up takeover. We take over the mindset of the people, but what is the Willie Lynch syndrome? What is it Willie Lynch later taught us? That you keep the keep the body and you take the mind. You want the body to be in place. You want the body of people to be in place, still working for you, but you want their mindset to believe that that wherever their foot treads does not belong to them. See the biblical terms showing up again? So we want them to believe that these things are not for them, that this can't be theirs, right? That this is not something that's going to help them, right? So that's colonization. And so when somebody's trying to take you away from sense of self, even though you're here, or when you had Israelites that were in Israel and other people took over them, like Rome was at the time, right? So when Yeshua is on earth and you have Rome in power and stuff like that, what's going on there? What's happening there? You have Romans that are in power doing all these wild things, and they have a Roman governor, but what did they do? They had a king. Now the king wasn't even an Israelite. It was actually a brother of, or not a brother, but somebody related in the family to Caligula and Nero, but they put him on the throne. You come in there and you make sure that you have the people still in place. You have them think that there's more they had them believe there's more into Roman citizenship than there is into their own citizenship. And you have them keep learning from there, right? That's what colonization is. That's how you conquer a people. Look at Daniel. Daniel's name in Babylon is actually Belteshazzar. Who you know is and who were really Ananiah, Hananiah, and Azariah. You know them as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Why is that? It's because that Babylon came in. They did what all conquerors do, right? Which is you come in and you take, you take the people out, and these were 16 to 13, maybe even 12-year-old boys, but they were all in the court. They were basically like children of people that were in the Israelite king's court. So you take these children and you teach them to be Babylonian. And so as they grow up, the goal is that they'll start being more Babylonian than Israel. So they'll say like, oh yeah, I'm an Israelite, but they'll still think of Babylon as being better. Just like they'll say, oh yeah, I'm an African, but I'll still think of an American being better, even though an American is not really what we think it is either. But they'll think that African American gets them more than just being who their tribe is. Right? That's the goal. That's what colonization does. That's why you got to study kingdom, because whether you like it or not, America's a republic. So if you're talking about America, you're in a kingdom. Democracy is actually a kingdom. Demo means a little bit, a few people to live together that give you a little bit of information. Cracy, government. Right? So those people, they govern you through a republic. Democratic republic is a kingdom. The same stuff we've been talking about. Then it said the language, education of the human psyche, playing a game on the mind. Yeah. It's commercialism, religion, commercialism 6, religion 6, government 6, a man's number. Well, no, the number of the name actually, if you know how to write out in Hebrew, this is why it's important to know culture. It translates to Nedo-Kesar. Whether you're talking about Hebrew 666, 666, or even in Greek 616, that's where the 616 comes from. If you take it to Greek or you take it to Latin, it ends up being 616. If you take it to Hebrew, it's 666. Nedo-Kesar or Nero, that's the Antichrist spirit that continues to exist, that's going to lift up governments to make people look at the government and also lift up Satan and the people that worship him. Amen, Tamika. Yeah, great job by the moderators. Yeah, you take the identity of people, right? So check this out. That's why you got to understand kingdom. You know? You said the meaning of names given is different. Abednego is a servant of Nebo. Right. So that's why you have to know these things. And that's why it was tough for them. Remember when we went over this in our series, I think it's got to be part 5 part 5 or part 6, one of those. Probably part 5. Part 5. So when you look at part 5, you'll see real quick, like, we had, like, when you're looking at part in that part or whatever, when we went over Daniel and we went over Daniel 2 and Daniel 7, you can see very quickly, like, Adonai, Hananiah, and Azariah also prayed with Daniel or Daniel, how they prayed together to be able to get what's going on. But then King Nebuchadnezzar still turns right back around and says, everybody better worship me and worship who I say you worship, even though he had just said, man, who you guys serve is the greatest. But then he turns around and still says, no, I still want you to be about that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego rather than Adonai, Hananiah, and Azariah, right? Yah, praise to the Most High. He was dealing with names. Their Shem. The word Shem means name. Their Shem, their authority, their name. He was trying to get them away from being Shemitic, right? And once you get away from being Shemitic, you get away from being sealed. These are the things we've been talking about. Once again, Revelation is not a one-off. It's a continued conversation about the same incident. And it's the same type of thing that has us stuck in the mode that we're in, right? So when you're dealing with these things, you're talking about 666, the base of carbon. Are you talking about 666 as far as electrons, neutrons, and protons? Because electrons, neutrons, and protons, neutrons don't exist. Neutrons is a theory. There's nobody's ever seen a neutron under a microscope. A neutron is a theory because they said the electron and the proton was something that wasn't supposed to lose any energy, right? Or the energy was supposed to go somewhere else, and the energy wouldn't just stop, but the energy started stopping. So since they couldn't explain the energy stopping when they were making the protons and the electrons explode, there were a group of 5 young scientists and Italian scientists in 1930s or so, somewhere in there, who came up with a theory that said, well, maybe it goes to a neutral space that we just can't see. We'll call it neutrons. And then they came up with neutrinos after that, and they've still been trying to figure out what a neutrino is, because a neutron never existed. Now they're trying to say, well, neutrons come from neutrinos, but it's a theory. There's no such thing as a neutron. Look, I don't know much about history either, so I know more than some, because that's what I do. I have time to literally just be into this all day, every day, but it doesn't mean that I'm better out than everybody else, right? We can all study this. Yeah, they never bowed down to his image despite his name, right? Austro said, yes, he still wanted them to serve him even after seeing Yah deliver them from the fire. He still had some issues after that. Thank you, is it Kimmy's? I think. Thank you for being on. It's in my day you call it homework. Amen. Is it neutron, electron, proton? Can make a crouton. Shoot, who knows what people be coming up with. So watch this, and all this stuff now, right? We've been talking about, and this is part 8, I believe, right? So, and all these things we've been talking about and flowing in, it gets us to a place now where what are we going to do? We can go to now. We can start looking at some stuff a little more deep. Revelation chapter 6, I believe. And we can use this right here. I apologize, those who are on the podcast. You might hear my fingers tapping on the screen a little bit. Let's see. Revelation chapter 6. So now we get into now we can go into some stuff, because now, remember, we were talking about the seals. Who's worthy to open the seal, right? Only one person's worthy, the person who this is his revelation, right? This is the revelation, or the chazon, or some people would say, if you're using modern Hebrew, chasyon or something like that. But chazon literally being the revelation, the rejoicing in Greek they would say apocalypse. So by the way, once again, depending on how you're looking at it, you're going to look at it from one viewpoint, one culture as it being something scary or whatever. But the reality is this is about rejoicing. Matter of fact, in Hebrew, if you put the characters together, you're dealing with, actually, I'm saying chazon. It should be chezon. And chezon would be like, chezon would be like, how do I want to put this? So like a wall of protection that leads us to Zion, a high place. It allows us to become more mature. That's actually how we would translate it. It'd be like a wall of, so like a wall of protection. So this is a wall of protection for you and I as we're walking this walk. It's also a place that gets us to Zion. Zion doubles as two things. It can be a thing that cultivates the ground, like a garden tool, and it can also be a weapon to be used in battle. So, so we have this place where we are protected. We're cultivating some things now. We're able to also fight the great fight. And then we can mature. None being a tadpole that eventually will grow into an adult. So we are able to start going from only drinking the sincere milk to now getting into some very in-depth things and some in-depth realities. You started reading from the start, from the Torah for the first time. Thank you for introducing us to the truth. Amen. Amen. Yeah, most definitely. So if we go to Revelation chapter 6, right? And we did a lot of different things or whatever to get us back. It's been a little while. Some things been all over the place. And we still, as you can see, still traveling. Was hoping to get to our destination by now. But, we're going to take our time and be safe with all the stuff that it seems like's been coming up against us. We're going to make sure that we are a little extra careful and stuff. And make sure we're rested. So y'all pray for us. Things like that. I apologize about not being on last night. Didn't have the signal to do it anyway. So, so we're talking about some stuff that we should be rejoicing, taking us into spiritual maturity. And we see all these things that have happened. Yochanan, John, had to be in place to receive the revelation of Yahshua HaMashiach. He was keeping Shabbat in order to do so. He saw the Most High. He saw the Most High, or the manifestation of Yahshua HaMashiach. He dealt with, he got a message that we're supposed to give to all of the assembly. The first assembly, Ephesus, he says, make sure that you know who Yah is. Don't forget your first love. Second assembly, he says, you got to realize who you are. That there are people who are saying that you're not Israel, but they are actually not Israel, and they are the synagogue of Satan if they would tell you anything else. He says you got to be careful about the doctrine. There's specific doctrine out there to discount who the Hebrews are, the doctrine of Balaam. And there's also doctrine out there to tell you there's an Old Testament, New Testament. That's the doctrine of Nicolaitans. So be careful of that. He tells us right after that in the fourth group. Oh, wow. I'm going to need to go get some gas soon. You know what? I might need to get some gas while we're sitting up here talking. Y'all might have to take a trip with me. I just realized that I'm just about on E. I got this car sitting here running. We might have to, I'm not going to take a break. We can keep the live going, but y'all might have to take a ride with me real quick. Nevertheless, so we're speaking on, let me see. Oh yeah. So then after that, we make sure that we understand that we better be careful, because a Jezebel spirit will try to enter in where people are trying to get you into idolatry, and they'll call themselves prophets and prophetesses and all these different titles. And the reality is Yah hasn't called them to be any of that. So you need to know your word for yourself. Then after that, we get into a place of where, hold on, what was I saying after that? Then after that, the assembly of Sardis. Sardis is where we need to make sure that we keep the things that we have been heard and received. The assembly after that, we need to make sure, hey, be careful and be ready. Be careful and be ready for some things, because you're going to be dealing with, understand that Yahshua has to come through the proper lineage, that he's opening doors that no man can shut, he's shutting doors that no man can open, and that and that you are in fact Yashrael, and that he's always loved you. And then the assembly of Laodicea, the last one, he says, hey, be careful, because sometimes you can be hot or cold. I wish I knew if you were all the way in or not, right? So you need to be all the way in. Even if you don't comprehend everything yet, be all on what you know, be all the way in on, right? Don't be part-time, right? Don't be somebody that does, hears the word, doesn't do it. Don't be somebody that just uses this to point your finger and tell somebody else that they're not great. You know, oh, okay, we're going to be praying for you, Sister Sonia. Thank you. We're praying that you get home safely. Right. So those are things that he says. Then after that, we get into chapter 4, which is where we realize that basically what, heaven looks like, the governance of it, all those things. Chapter 5 tells us that it's the line of the tribe of Yehuda, or the line of the tribe of Judah, that has to be able to ensure that we're able to get these things. Only he can release the seals, which means only he can give us the revelation, right? Only he can do these things. All right. He said, be a god. If you want to be a god is a Germanic deity. If you're talking about being like an African deity or whatever, at least be a Netcher, or, be more like an Enansi, or be an Onyon Kapan, or something that actually has to do with your culture. God has to do with Germanic deity. So I wouldn't be a god even if I believed in that. I would make sure that I was part of the right thing. But we have to be careful that we don't try to make ourselves, that's somebody else's culture, making yourself God. And even in our culture, when people do that, right, it's not necessarily something that was always agreed upon anyways, right? It's something that was fought. Nevertheless, we go through all that stuff. And now it gets us to Revelation chapter 6, where now you start seeing these seals come up, right? These 7 seals that were on the scroll that only Yahshua has the ability to open, right? So there's the scroll that only Yahshua has the ability to open, right? This is stuff that we have to get. Once again, we've got culture together, because before somebody goes and says, that's the Council of Nicaea, this, that, whatever, before the Council of Nicaea existed, this stuff was already written. These words were already written, and there were different words that were used, different culture. So now that we comprehend the culture, Revelation 6, verse 1, Yohanan speaks. John is speaking. He says, and I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals. So he saw that the Lamb, the only person that can open these seals, he started with the first one. Right, he started off with Aleph. He started off with the source. So right from the source of what's going to be going on, what we're getting ourselves ready for, right? All the stuff that, hey, the assembly better be tight knit, better have themselves together. Why? What's coming up? First things first, I saw the Lamb open up one of the seals, and I heard, as it were a noise of thunder, one of the 4 beasts saying, "Come and see." So a loud sound, right? One of the things that governs us. So the things that govern us cause us to see. Right, I saw that the Most High, or I saw that Yahshua Mashiach is the only one that can open the seal. I saw once he opened the seal, that as soon as he did, I heard extremely loud voice, as if it was like thunder, right next to me. Like when lightning strikes, and the lightning strikes, and you hear the thunder right there because it's right on top of you. I heard this thunder like it jolted me, is what he's saying. Excuse me. And one of the 4 beasts saying, "Come and see." So one of the things that govern us, if we're governed by the correct things, we will see and hear different than if we're governed by the incorrect things culturally. Okay. So now he says, and I saw and behold a white horse. This is the first seal. A white horse, which really would have been what? A bright horse. Okay. Once again, remember, this word white doesn't even exist yet. Right. This color white isn't even considered to be a color. Matter of fact, the color white technically still isn't a color. Right. But he says, I see this white. I see this color white, right? And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow and a crown, and was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. All right. So if we take this out of, once again, when we talk about the spiritual, we don't want the spiritual to always be something that's so mystical that there's never practical. It's never practical, right? We want this thing that's spiritual, pneumatical thought, to become practical. Hey, how you doing, Omni, right? So we want this thing to become practical. So what is it saying here? It's saying that, look, there's somebody who's on a horse. Now, comprehend, when we talk about horses, in Israelite culture, whenever somebody talks about a horse, especially if a horse is not in the stable. If you ever came to Israel and you saw that horses were not in the stables and people were riding around on horses all over the place, it meant that they were in a time of war. Right? It meant they were in a time of war. So in ancient times, if you came upon somebody's city and the horses were out, that meant that somebody's getting ready to go to war. Right? In our culture. Now, we know in other people's culture, maybe they were riding around on horses to and fro everywhere like that, right? But if horses were out and about in North Africa, comprehend that meant it was time to go to war. It's time to go to battle. So this first seal, before the first seal happens, all this stuff is getting us prepared. We need to get ourselves together. We need to be on one accord, because once we hit this first seal being open, it's time to go to war. You're in a battle. You're in a fight. And we're in places where people say, don't worry about anything. You're in a battle, but the battle is not yours. That's true, but you're still in a war. And even if, watch this, I comprehend that even though there are a lot of people who never went to war with me, right? When I was in the United States military, I still comprehend that even though a lot of people never stepped foot where I stepped foot, they still had to make sure that bills were paid, and they had to make sure food was sent out, and they had to make sure that laws were passed. They had to make sure that we had bulletproof vests. They had to make sure that we had training. Even if people never went to war with me, they still were at war, right? World War I and World War II, especially World War II, is where we find that women enter the workforce and have never looked back. What happened with them entering the workforce at that level? When you go into war, they were the ones. Somebody had to make sure they were manned in the factories. Somebody had to make sure that certain things that were done by men only had to get done. They were the ones that had to make sure, that you had them in positions that they'd never been in. They had to do farming now. They had to take care of whatever it is. They had to be like, it wasn't that women didn't do any farming, but now, heck, they might have to do stuff with the livestock. Maybe that was the man's job before. Now they got to make sure that as far as horses and things like that, they need to make sure that they can ride just like everybody else. They might have to do some cowhand work, things like that. Like things changed up all of a sudden to where now you got to have these women that are in place. Now women need to get saluted by men. It's not just yes sir, it's yes ma'am now, right? But it happens because everybody went to war, right? So you're in a place of war. Whether you want to say, even when people want to say, well, it's not our fight. Okay, fine. Even if it's not your fight, you're still at war. You're still a country. You're still a nation. You're still a people at war. Oh, okay. You're saying a haya because a lot of people do the I am that I am thing and say that word was actually hayach, or hayach, I guess, right? Even though really, if you want to get into it, you got to go to Exodus, not 3:14, 3:15 is when he reveals his name. He says, moreover, my name is, and he says, Yahweh Elohim. So he said, so when Moses said, what is it that I should tell you people? Achaya basically means like, it is what it is. Like, you're here, you see me on the ground, you see the burning bush, all those things. Sure. Right. But he says after that, he says, understand that verse 15, moreover, more importantly, what is my name? What is my Shem? My Shem, my authority is what? Yahweh Elohim. And it's by that I should be known. He said that should be a monument to my people for me forever, right? So, but I get what you're saying. I get what you mean. Nevertheless, so now here we are, you're at war. Yeah, example of women at war, by the way, yeah, Deborah and Judith, most definitely, right? You can talk about Esther, even though that's not necessarily, we wouldn't maybe say at war, but you're still dealing with somebody over your people and trying to kill your people. So I would say that's war too, right? But so we're all in this place of war, right? And so he says, hey, be careful, be ready, be united. First things first, be in place for war, be in place for battle, right? And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he sat on him. He that sat on him had a bow, right? What is a bow? A bow means that he can shoot at you from a far distance, right? And horsemen that were bowmen. So horsemen or horse bowmen, I can't remember what they call them, but something like that. Horse bowmen are more devastating because they're faster and they can move, right? They can move to the side. They don't have to just stay behind, but they can stay behind with the other bowmen, etc. And so he was fast. He could shoot from a far distance. He had a crown that was given to him. So this is somebody who's looking at authority, right? Trying to be an authority over you. And what does it say? It says, and he went forth conquering At to conquer. It says and in English, but it'd be at in Hebrew. At to conquer. At conquer, right? So he went to conquer towards conquering. In other words, the only thing that's in this first seal is comprehend somebody's coming, and their whole mindset is conquering. Not conquering because they're supposed to, because it's necessary, because it's going to bless somebody. They're conquering just for the sake of conquering. Literally. There's a person there are people out there whose whole reason they conquer is just so they can check, have a little check mark. Say, I conquered some people. That's it. That's their only mindset. They're not thinking about trying to grow or trying to make sure this. They're not trying to make sure that their nation is great and all this stuff and all these things you hear. God bless America and all this stuff. They're conquering just because they like to conquer. It's in their blood. It's in their blood. Right now, who would we say are people that conquer for conquering's sake? We could go down a list of them, couldn't we? I mean, heck, we can look, and this is not all white people. We could look at the Mongols. Conquering just for conquering's sake. Genghis Khan. Right? We could look at the people who made China into what is China. Conquering just for conquering's sake. The reason why Japan is a nation, it used to be a whole bunch of tribes too. But there was a tribe that wanted to conquer just for conquering's sake. What about Joseph Stalin? Conquering just for conquering's sake. You could look at the Turks. Conquering just for conquering's sake. The Vikings, even though the Vikings, the interesting thing about the Vikings is that Viking was a occupation. A lot of people think the Vikings are a people. A lot of the Vikings were Scandinavians, but not all of them. To go Viking was not to be a Viking. They didn't say you were a Viking back in the day. Nowadays, because people don't know culture, they'll say, oh yeah, we are Vikings. Back then it was you went Viking. You went Viking. Right? So if you were going to Viking, you went to basically, mess some people up. And some of the people who went Viking started trying to make themselves kings. And so that's where we have like this weird thing that happens, right? But a Viking was not supposedly a country or a group of people or a nationality. A Viking was somebody who went Viking, right? But that's conquering for conquering's sake. France, conquering for conquering's sake. Rome, conquering for conquering's sake. The Vatican, conquering for conquering's sake. You see what I'm saying? You have a spirit that's there that we need to be prepared for. This first seal is saying there are people that are just, their whole mindset is to conquer. You're trying to figure out why they conquer, and you need to comprehend they conquer because they conquer. Like the Bible is tough. Read your Bible to bless you. It's telling you here. They went forth conquering and to conquer. They didn't go forth conquering because it was going to make sure that their country was this or that their countrymen would be this. Adolf Hitler didn't care about his countrymen. Adolf Hitler straight up told people that he was lying and that he wanted to have a whole bunch of people based off of these lies that would follow whatever he said no matter what, and that would make him a god. Matter of fact, Adolf Hitler, if you look at him, this is why people got to be careful when they start talking about Christianity and stuff. Adolf Hitler, first of all, wasn't a Christian. He didn't believe in the Most High, none of that. Nevertheless, though, Adolf Hitler was somebody that believed he was like basically the Germanic Messiah, even though the real German people really were not. Like Adolf Hitler was a Jew who killed off Jews, killed off some of his own family members, and told people that they weren't him, right? But told people like, hey, I'm, even though that's my family right there, I'm not a Jew. And they wouldn't dare touch him, right? Because what happened was he started saying, well, I'm like the Messiah. I'm supposed to bring Germany back. Forget just what Germany was before World War I, where everybody blamed Adolf Hitler, everybody blamed Germany for what happened. And he was, even though he was really Austrian or Austria-Hungary, right? Or whatever that was, right? Austria-Hungary, right? And was next to Germany, but they considered themselves to be Germans. That's why he moved to Germany. That's why he fought as a German, as a soldier. And he actually fought bravely. For people that say he was a coward and stuff, he was actually out there. He got gassed, like with, I don't know if it was mustard gas, but with stuff like that. He was that close to combat and stuff. He was running stuff back and forth to make sure people had the weapons that they needed to be able to take care of stuff on the front line. So he actually was into action. But he wanted to take stuff back to the times of Germanic kings, like Charlemagne. Well, Charlemagne is, I won't say is more French, but nevertheless, like a lot of German people see themselves in the same vein. The Gauls, people like that, the Gauls who defeated Rome, and then when the Gauls defeated Rome, they actually started acting Roman and started saying they were the true Romans. And, the Romans, they took over Greece and started acting like they were the true Greeks. And the Greeks, took over what the Kemetic people did. They perverted it and started saying like they were actually more hip to what was going on than the actual Kemetic people did, right? The list goes on and on and on. But people that conquering for conquering's sake, it's a spirit. It goes past just one race of people, right? You got to comprehend. Once again, Revelation is not a one-off. It's a continued conversation throughout the story of mankind. And every time we try to separate the Bible as if it's a church and state thing, remember, the Bible doesn't have separation of church and state. Remember, in the Bible, royal priesthood is one word. In English, you have to use two words. But if you were royalty in Israel, you were a priest. And if you were a priest in Israel, you had to be royalty. The two go hand in hand. It's a culturally different mindset, right? Jock, you said thanks for clarifying that, because with the Vikings, because I always wondered about them. Amen. And now they got us conquering each other. That's a great point. Many were robbers, yep. Spaniards as well. Yeah, so these are all people that conquered for what? For conquering's sake. And so when you're trying to figure out, like, now this is something, that's why you got to get out that system, because a lot of people are in this system and they keep saying, we're conquering for this, we're conquering for this. They'll say, yeah, everybody gets conquered. We conquered you. You mad because you got conquered. That's a spirit that you have to be prepared for. 7 assemblies. Get yourself prepared, because the door is open to you in Shemayim, at Shemayim, in heaven, right? For you to make sure that you don't have to deal with a lot of stuff and to start coming together and be sealed off from some things, as we're going to get into, I believe, tomorrow. So much stuff's been happening recently, I can't even keep up with what we're supposed to, what we're not supposed to be doing. But prayerfully, everything will be on track for us to get into this tomorrow. But you got to be ready, right? And understand that there's a lot of people who are out here just for conquering's sake. So be prepared for that. Right, the next part, verse 3 of Revelation chapter 6. And when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, come and see. So the second beast, the second thing that governs us, right? So there were 4 beasts, 4 things that govern us. And so far we see one out for first one, there has to be a thing that governs us, that helps us to be able to see that there are people that are conquering for conquering's sake, and it's going to seal us off, right? Remember, this stuff has been sealed off from us. Before the seal is open, where this conquering spirit is going to have to be let loose, first of all, we need to seal ourselves together as assemblies and comprehend where we stand in at Shemayim, in heaven, and comprehend who the only one is that can give us direction in this Yahshua HaMashiach. Now the seals are being opened, and so we're protected by the thing that governs us. Hey, be careful. Conquering spirit, conquering for the sake of conquering. Here's the second one. And when, verse 3 of Revelation 6, and when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, come and see. And there went out another horse, red, and was and given to him, or well, we would say in English, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take what? To take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another, and there was given unto him a great sword. So the first one is for conquering just for the sake of conquering. Could care less if people die, could care less if people live. Just need to make sure you conquer. Make sure you got as many territories and colonies and all that stuff as possible. Second horse, right? Which is what? Red, right? Which is red, meaning what? Power, also blood. Going to be bloodshed. And it doesn't say that he's there to kill you. Did you catch that? It said he was there. His goal is to take peace. Now, you're supposed to have a peace that surpasses all understanding, right? This horseman's goal is to take away your peace. So you're thinking that the most important thing is to take away your culture, that's part of it. You're thinking that the most important thing was to take away your language. That's part of it. But the second horseman is really, everything he does is to take. All right, sorry about that, y'all. Looks like we lost main signal. So prayerfully, we won't have too much issue with signal, and you guys will still be able to be with us on all platforms. So it looks like we lost one of our primary signals, but I think we still got enough to finish this off. Hopefully you guys can still hear us okay. Shalom, Iron, how you doing? The only time I ever ran out of gas, I was going to the gas station. Words of wisdom. Yeah, it froze. Yeah. Yeah, I think, yeah, we're back. Okay, cool. Cool. All right. Yeah, and we lost the main one, but I think I got it set up where you guys should still be good, at least for us to finish this. I told you. Doing this stuff on here. Yeah, I wasn't connected to 5G, but I had to use 5G for a minute. Um, okay. All right, cool. So, yeah, so this second assembly, or I'm sorry, second assembly, this second horseman, it says that he's going to take your peace. And when he takes your peace away, what's going to happen? He takes your peace away. So now, what's going to happen? You fight each other. So the first horse, first seal, it says, hey, this stuff you've been get yourself together, seal yourself, Israel. Why? Because now I'm gonna start releasing these seals off. And when I release the first one, right, because things got to happen, I got to start judging. I got to start putting stuff in order, and I've got to start dealing with what it is. I can't run away from it. I can't do what everybody else says, which is pretend that I don't see it. Right? I can't just pretend that I don't see it. Y'all hold on a second. I'm gonna go let them know that I'm gonna go to the gas station real quick, and then we'll get back on. All right. Hold on one second. I gotta get some gas while I'm sitting out here running this. That'd be so crazy to run out of gas, and I'm sitting here on a live session. Right. So if y'all want maybe take a 2-3 minute break, something like that at the most, I'm probably gonna be back in a minute. But if y'all want to take a quick break or something like that, and oh wow. Okay, hold up. I can't find the keys to the house. Okay. All right. So I'll be right back. If y'all want to take a minute break or something like that, I'm just let them know we're gonna travel get some gas real quick. Okay. All right, they know where I'm headed. All right. So yeah, so when we're dealing with this, we're dealing with these items. So we're dealing with that first horseman that's has us in a position that we got to be ready for. That first horseman that's trying to ensure that we are just dealing with people who are conquering for conquering's sake, and it's a warning to us. Remember, what's not a warning for some. Oh gosh. Well, anyways, what's not a warning for some is or what's scary for some is not scary for us, right? So that first horse is really, these are warnings for us. For other people, they need to be afraid because they're probably going to go through some conquering, right? So for others, they're going to be terrified about this. They're going to be fearful. They're going to be afraid of some of this, right? For us, we're not concerned. We're not overly concerned about this in the same manner that they are, because once again, we rejoice. So they're in a position where they're not, rejoicing because they hear these things and this is scary. I'm like, oh my, oh wow, there's going to be somebody conquering for conquering's sake. But we're going to make sure we're sealed from that and that we're in the truth and living by something different in that, right? So that's not our mindset. We're not worried about that stuff. We're not controlled by any of those things. We're worried about making sure that we're doing what the Most High wants us to do. We're sealed off. And the second one says that He's going to take away people's peace. But because of the kingdom that we're in, we have a peace that surpasses all understanding, right? So since we're at peace and not dealing with some of these things that other people are dealing in, we're not overly concerned about those things, those items as well. And so while everybody else is attacking each other, what we're beginning to do is come back to each other. And that's why you're somebody that scares, um, those who are in power. It's scary to others that you would come together while others are ready to rip each other apart, right? It's scary that you would say, I don't need to be a Republican or Democrat. And some people can't live their lives outside of fighting each other on that. They have to fight each other on that. They're afraid not to fight each other on that, right? It's scary, for them not to do it. So for us, we're not scared though of that, right? Then the next one, it says, and he opened up this third seal, right? And they heard another beast say. So once again, these beasts, these things that are governing us in heaven, are helping us to be able to hear and see differently than everybody else. And he tells us to come and see. He said, and he said he beheld. Whenever he says he beheld, he paid attention. He looked at and paid attention. He paid attention to what? A black horse, which would have been, a black horse or a dark horse. And he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hands. Okay. Now, had a pair of balances in his hand. Okay. And he heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts. So coming out of the midst of the four. So this is a voice coming from a special place. We haven't seen this. So this is something that we haven't seen this yet, this setup yet, where a voice is coming specifically from the center of these beasts, right? So this is something we got to pay extreme attention to. Something different is going on here. We need to pay attention to this in a different manner than what we were before. He says, so I heard a beast in the midst of the four beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. And see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. All right, so this is crucial because this is talking about controlling what people are eating. Is that not a big, huge issue today? We want to, once again, we want to take this from being so spiritual that it's mystical, and we want to make the spiritual practical. So many of us have heard so many different things. This is very practical. First horse is a warning. Hey, people out there conquering just for the sake of conquering. Stop trying to have in-depth conversation with some of these people. Some of these people, they just want to conquer. They got a conquering spirit, and if you're around them, they want to conquer you. And some of us who are on here listening now are still part of that same conquering spirit, right? Then the next one that comes behind and says, look, the next goal is to take away your peace. If you take away your peace, you'll start fighting each other. That's Deuteronomy chapter 28, curse type stuff, verse 15 through 68, right? That because we're tender, because we're unprepared, because we're not at peace, we're not even prepared for peace. Ephesians chapter 6, we don't have our feet, the thing that guides our steps, our walk, our faith, shod with the shoes of peace, so to speak, because we don't even have that going on. Like it's going down in all types of wild and weird ways, right? And now after that, the next one, it says, hey, I'm gonna start messing with your food. It says I'm gonna take some scales. Now a lot of people see the scales, and you've heard probably people talk about judging, because judges and scales and stuff like that. But that's not what's talking about culturally. It's talking about weighing food, and weighing how much money's there, right? So how much money do you give, and what are you paying for your food? We're gonna try and control your food, right? Is that not something that's a huge thing that's going on, right? When you gentrify, when somebody gets gentrified, what happens to the food? When somebody gets gentrified, what are you gonna do with the food? Y'all hear what I'm saying? That's the first thing you do is you attack the food. Are there not food deserts? In some countries, has it not been so ridiculous for the price of bread to where people weren't able to do so? Matter of fact, the thing that caused the French Revolution was the fact that people couldn't get food. When Octavian, the son of Julius Caesar and his mistress, who became the second Caesar and became the first emperor of Rome, even though Julius Caesar, you could say, probably was really the first one, but became what his story tells you is the first emperor of Rome. Um, one of the issues that he dealt with was the fact that Rome used to have it set up to where everybody had access to wheat, to bread. If everything went down, hey, at least we got bread, right? Like if we can't figure nothing else out, hey, bare minimum, we got bread, everybody can eat. And they couldn't find it, and all of a sudden that was one of the things that almost brought down the whole kingdom. Right? We don't think about this is because we don't know about monarchy. We don't put this with the story of mankind. We don't put this. We only look at his story, and we think that in his story we're supposed to separate the Bible from the story of mankind. Revelation is, once again, it's not a one-off. It goes together with all this stuff. So you have all these people, right, who are dealing with stuff in this time, in this season, and it's hard to get bread. It's hard to get real bread. Even it's hard to get real wheat. That's the reason why a lot of people stay away from wheat, is because wheat's not even real anymore unless you're growing it yourself. And is that not, see, it, this is why it's important to comprehend it's not a one-off. Now, stuff like Matthew chapter 13, it makes more sense, doesn't it? It makes more sense when the Most High, when Yahshua himself is speaking, right? The manifestation of the Most High on the earth at the time. It makes more sense when he says stuff like, he'll separate the wheat from the tare. You see that? Like, this is why his word is like eternal. You have to get the context. When you get the cultural context of this word, it takes you to so many different places that we're not usually prepared to go, right? He's literally telling you, like, hey, you're gonna be in a position where this wheat thing gonna be serious, and people are gonna be overcharging you for stuff, right? If you want to get real food, you got to pay more for real food than fake food. They'll tell you. They'll tell you go to the store and buy dandelion. Every once in a while, they give you some dandelion tea, stuff like that. They'll tell you to kill off the dandelion that grows in your own yard. That's free dandelion root. That's free tea, right? Like you have lettuce that grows. Like if you in a big city, or if you in a city somewhere and you see that you see vegetation that grows in between the steps. I need you to understand something. If you ever see the vegetation that pops up in the steps, a lot of times this stuff you should pull up, rinse off, and try to figure out what it is. But most of that stuff is not going to be poisonous. Matter of fact, there's no grass out there. Like if you see grass, just straight up grass, whether it grows up in huge shoots and hasn't been cut, or and has vegetation and seed and stuff that starts coming out of it, or whether it's just grass that's there or whatever, you can eat your own grass. Now you can't always digest grass as far as like chewing it up and stuff, but you can eat your own grass. You surely can. You can eat your own grass. You can eat grass that's out there. Eat it up, and it's good for you, right? Yeah, we have some land. I don't have acres and acres and acres. We're working on getting our own land for our for our community. Um, But yeah, we have some land, that we're working on getting some things done personally. But we're trying to also get people. Sorry for the noise. We're trying to get people used to having their own land as well. Your own stuff. Even if you don't have your own land, you can grow your own food. Oh, wow. I just realized that I left without my card. I gave it to my wife yesterday and forgot to take it. I'm over here, so I'm low on gas. I guess I got cash or something. Hopefully, I got enough people that have to clear something inside. I didn't even think about that. Ugh. Let's see something real quick. But anyways, yeah. So we got to realize that they're talking about, they're talking about food. I don't even have. Oh, okay. I'm about to say I didn't even bring shoes. I got my sandals. But yeah, so you gotta comprehend that we're talking about a whole. different ball game when it comes to food and things like that. This is something that's done on purpose, and we were warned about it, right? We were warned about it in the Bible. It even comes back when we talk about that 666, right? That mark that everybody likes to talk about, that mark of the beast. It's even going to come back there to tell you that, hey, like, you better know how to read your food. That's why those who take natural medicine 1 with us, you got to learn how to read your food. We teach you how to make sure you can look at those labels and stickers and everything on there and make sure that you're prepared for all those things, right? And a lot of people aren't prepared. A lot of people don't really know how to utilize those things. Y'all give me a second, I'm sorry. Wow, I'm missing a bunch of cash. Okay, I think I found some. Okay, I found enough. I'll just have to stop and get some more gas on the way to the road. Oh, praise y'all. I was not prepared at all. All right, y'all give me a little bit. We're gonna be right back on in a second. I'm sorry. I think we got our stuff together. All right. Well, I guess y'all know. Yeah. So give me a second. We're gonna finish up in a little bit. All right, y'all. I'm gonna have to. You guys are gonna be off for a hot second. I gotta use my phone to make the payment for the gas, just to make sure we get a full tank. Do you guys have do you guys have can I use it out there? Yeah. No? Okay. All right. Let me get 50 on 3. 50 on 3.
50 on 3?
Yes, sir. Okay. It went through? It went through? Can I get a receipt?
Okay.
All right, thank you. Okay. All right, sorry, yo. Hopefully tomorrow we'll finally be back in a normal place, so we won't have to worry about doing that again. Can't get on the road. I was about to have to stop again. I figured let me just go ahead and pay for the full amount. All right. So, anyways, where were we? Oh yeah. So we had the third assembly that we were dealing with, and then we got this fourth assembly now that comes up, right? Revelation chapter 6, verse 7, fourth assembly, where it says, "And when he had opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say," so once again, governance, things we're governed by, right? So we go in, and if you want to go in the order of beasts, right? The first beast. So for the what is it that warns us? Can I get a receipt for pump 3?
Pump 2, receipt?
Pump 3. Thank you. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened, I apologize. I guess it tried to reach for another Wi-Fi, even though I told it to turn the Wi-Fi off. But anyway, so we're done. We're going to drive back, get in place, and finish up. But then, so that third, what we said, the third government, that third government that we were on, the third government is the Son of Man. I think that's where we got cut off. That third government is dealing with the Son of Man. So Yeshua had to come, so that comprehension opens up the ability to be able to see the person who's trying to take your food and things of that from you and trying to get it to where your food is controlled and all that. You're also dealing with what? Son of Man, dealing with the physical manifestation, right? Not just spirit, but you are spirit, you are soul, and you are body as well. And then last thing that pops up in this is the last thing that pops up in this is um, what's the last one? Oh, as this last verse real quick. And so Revelation chapter 6 verse 7. And when he had opened the fourth seal, I heard the fourth beast say, which is the eagle, right? You're going to mount up on eagle's wings. You're going to fly high. Um, so be in a position where we can see from a different perspective. It says, and I heard, and when he had opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, "Come and see." And I looked, and behold, and pay attention, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was what? Was Death, and hell followed with him. So now we're talking about a whole different thing, because now people go into this place of this and that or whatever, but it's death. But it's not just death; it's death that has hell follow with it. So now we're talking about judgment. We're talking about if you're not careful, you're in a place where you will be judged, right? Forgive and you'll be forgiven, right? Or what is it? I'm sorry. Judge and you shall be judged. Condemn and you shall be condemned. Forgive, or if you don't forgive, you shall not be forgiven. Give and it shall be given unto thee. Great measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, shall men give into your bosom. For with the same measure that ye meet, it shall be given unto you. That's Luke chapter 6, verses 37 and 38. So that's what we're dealing with here, is this judgment piece, right? We're dealing with this judgment piece now. And so that's the fourth seal. So we got these four seals with four different horses, and it's not and this looking at things in a different perspective and being able to soar over some things and being connected to the Most High now has us in a different position. It has us in a thought process, has us in a mindset that we can look at a lot of things a lot differently than what we were looking at them from before. And a lot of times people will talk about, oh, the pale horse is this and blah blah and all these different things. No. This last horse is talking about, and it's not the black horse, right? It's the pale horse. Pale talking about like almost like a green, almost like think gangrene type of color. When something's gangrene, it means that it's going to have to be cut off, right? So this pale horse has some issues physically going on, but also it's talking about a spiritual thing, because it's not just that it dies, right? Because if you don't get food, you could die. If you get conquered, you could die, right? If you have somebody who is trying to take away your peace so that you'll fight against each other, you could die. The first three horses could cause death. Death isn't the issue just by itself. It says that its name, its authority is death, and hell comes with it, meaning that we're talking about now, Revelation, the second death. That's mentioned in Revelation chapter 20. We're not just talking about any type of death. Remember, we got to be cultural. We got to be consistent. We have to be honest about it. We're talking about the second death. That's an issue. We're talking about the second death, judgment. And it says what? It says, and power was given unto him, unto them over the fourth part of the earth, to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the what? With the beast of the earth. Two ways we can take that word beast. We're talking about with animals coming to attack people, or you can just be talking about governments. Once again, beast in dreams, beast in visions, beast culturally speaking, and Israel is going to be referring to, in this type of mindset, in a prophetic mindset, is going to be referring to government, which means that the governments are tearing people up, right? Once again, let's stop. We wanted to be spiritual. Let's not make it just mystical. Let's make it practical as well. These beasts are tearing the government. Or, I'm sorry, these governments are tearing their people up. right? This is what's going on. Like even in England, when the first time that they put a king to death, or well, brought a king to trial and put that king to death, um, one of the hardest things that they had to prove was that the way that their governments are set up is that a king cannot sin, right? But their version of cannot sin is different than ours. If you study that, I believe it's England. I'm talking about. I'm pretty sure it is, because France was a different thing when it was the king and his wife, and she said let them have cake and all that. But the English, when they first time they brought him before trial, um, it was an illegal trial to begin with because you can't bring a king on trial. But what they were trying to fight is that you had a corrupt king. Think kingdom, think monarchy. You had a corrupt king, and the corrupt king was brought before trial. Now the corrupt king basically said, "Look, man, he wouldn't admit to it, but they were trying to say he started a civil war, or he was fighting in a civil war against his people, was killing his own people off, which was what he did." Now in this fight that's going on, in this war that's going on, in this you wouldn't call it war, but he's in a war for his life, and also whatever happens is going to set precedent. So even if he doesn't survive, whatever happens is going to set precedent for other kings coming behind him or queens coming behind him, and those who are fighting against him, if they lose and the king gets to be the king again and doesn't, or doesn't just admit that he did something wrong and take some kind of punishment for it, then those people who are going against him could, in fact, uh, you know, when he takes power again, he could just come and kill them off. So you got a lot of stuff that's going on, right? Kingdom, monarchy. We don't think about this stuff, but kingdom, monarchy, all this stuff going on. So they have to go through this trial, and at the end of the trial, or towards the end, the guy who's against him, the main guy, realizes, man, I'm gonna have to probably kill the king. He wasn't thinking about that, but the only way to have this done, because the king's not going to admit to any fault, and so he basically puts him in contempt of court. Do you put him in contempt of court? You can have the court case continue without the king being present, right? So when you say you're in contempt, you got to be careful. That's why we say always be honorable, because if they throw you out the courtroom but they keep the case going, that means the case is still going on about you, but you defend you, right? So that means that basically they put him in contempt of court, then they brought him back, and then they basically said he's going to be put to death, and that's how that thing unfortunately ended for that king. Um, right? But that's you're dealing with a lot of different things that are coming from kingdom, right? And so you have to comprehend in this world's system, in the world, in the system that we're in, that we're supposed to be in but not of. You got to comprehend in their system, the way that they do things is that they say, all right, you as a they say, all right, you as a king, um, basically can't do. Oh, I'm sorry, got something going on with the stuff on the podcast. But anyways, you as a king, or I'm sorry, as a king, basically the fight was is that a king can't sin, right? He can't, because whatever happens, like the subjects are his to do whatever he wants because he's over the kingdom. But their argument, I need you to understand, like this is legal stuff. This is why the Bible is law and case study. Their argument was that look, if that they were arguing sovereignty, right? Back then, we think sovereignty, they want you to believe sovereignty is some new thing. Back then, in ancient times, they were fighting for sovereignty. They said, well, look, the king has sovereignty, and as sovereignty, he has control over the land. However, we as subjects are sovereign beings within ourselves, and we are sovereign beings underneath the authority of the government. So if the king attacks our sovereignty, he in essence is attacking the land because we come from the land. We are over the land. We are sovereign over our own land. And if he attacks us, then he in essence is attacking the land itself. So a king can't attack the people. You live in a system that says that kings and queens can do whatever they want, that they can write up legislation and do whatever it is that they want, that they can get you to vote for things and still treat you like trash, right? That's what we fight against every day. And yet we're right. That's the fight that you're in, is that they can treat you however they want, Israel, and you're still supposed to just go along with it. The reality is something far different, right? So, um, so in all these things we're talking about, we got to comprehend what's really going on. And this is a fight. This is a much deeper and bigger fight and greater fight than what a lot of people might even think. I'm sorry, hold on one second. So, all right. So after we finish that, those four beasts, and people are looking at this stuff, then we get to verse 9. I need you to comprehend people are looking at this stuff differently than what we are. Then we get to verse 9. Verse 9, and when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of Elohim and for the testimony which they held. So the fifth seal says now we're in the fifth seal, all right? Fifth seal of the scroll. And what are we seeing? So there are people that are under there saying, how long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? And bright robes were given unto every one of them. And it was said unto them that they should rest yet for a little season, until their fellow servants also and their brethren that should be killed as they were should be fulfilled. Okay? So there are other people that are going to be what? Slain and killed. How long should they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Right? Some say it's just a part of it. We got to fulfill the book, right? Like the stuff that we've been talking about. This is what's going on, right? And so he's saying, hey, the fifth seal says, hey, there are people that are ready for him to what? Avenge their blood. People have been killing us, and there's going to be vengeance, right? Vengeance is not ours. Vengeance is his. However, we're still waiting for the vengeance. And he says, hey, there's still some people that are going to have to go through some things, but don't worry about it. Like you've got your robe. You're bright now. You're in a glorified position, glorified body. Things are going to be done for you very soon. Just wait a little season. So that means a little bit of time, right? Then verse 12. Now we're getting to the sixth seal. And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, and pay attention, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, and the stars. And by the way, sackcloth of hair, so it's talking about a culture, these people who were, right, John having this dream, looking at these people, this assembly, that was going to lead into chapter 7, which we'll get into tomorrow, which is going to be talking about the 12 tribes of Israel. It's saying that their hair is a specific color too. As much as people keep saying the Bible doesn't address any of this stuff, it seems to address it quite often, right? Nevertheless, the moon became as blood, and the stars of heaven fell into the earth, even as a fig tree casting her untimely figs, and she is shaken of a mighty wind, right? And so everything's starting to fall apart. Well, check this out though. And the heaven departed as a scroll, right? The rakia that people call that firmament, it rolled back, right? It rolled back. So the rakia rolled back, right? And it became as what? As a scroll. It rolled back like a scroll. And every mountain and island were moved out of their places. And the kings of the earth, the great men and the rich men and the chief captains and the mighty men and every bondman, so every slave even, and every free man, hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us, and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. Now the only reason these scrolls are being taken apart is because the Lamb is taking them apart. So the same person that has the authority to set these things in motion and allow these things to happen and get us prepared for these things and give us the revelation is the same Lamb who says he's coming and he has a wrath against certain people. Even though we say, no, it's not. No, he definitely has a wrath. And people are going, when they see what has been, oh, thank you, Kelly. When people see this, it says that he's going to what? That he's going to have a wrath, and then what? For verse 17, for the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? That's the question, right? We're gonna deal with that tomorrow, but that's where we're gonna leave it today. You guys kept hearing me talk about Revelation 7 and being sealed and who comes in and all that. See, all we gotta do is just read the Bible for what it says. It says, who shall be able to stand? Who shall be able to stand when all this stuff goes to be? Look, these people worship the sun and the moon and the stars. It says all that stuff is going to be messed up. These people go to high places to worship these false deities and stuff like that, right? All the mountains are going to be put out of position. It says that things that are supposed to be giving fruit on this earth, those things aren't even going to have a chance, and things are going to be like rattling out of control. Things that they had their stocking and everything. We'll get into that Revelation 19, Revelation 20, and later on down the path, right? But all these people. But all the stock and all these things, all the stuff is being shaken apart. What's going to happen? Who's going to be able to stand? The great day of his wrath is upon us. We thought that this was something that couldn't happen, but it's here. And who's going to be able to stand? Who's going to be able to stand? Is the question. Who shall be able to stand? Not will they stand. Who's going to be able to stand? Not can somebody stand. Who? Who can stand? Yahshua HaMashiach is Elohim. Jesus, which means half man, half Zeus, which comes from Yesus or Yesu in Latin and Greek, which was a nickname given to him by Pontius Pilate on the cross, is half man, half God. God being a Germanic deity. I'm not really into Germanic deities. So Yahshua HaMashiach es Adon, or is Lord, and that's who I'm speaking on. Reward says, how does the Illuminati and the fallen angels tie into everything? You're talking about, once again, people that consider to be great men. It told you, great men, rulers, people of that ilk. They're explained in that they try to make themselves great men of their own authority, and they're gonna be dealt with. People who worship. We haven't gotten into Revelation 12 and 13 gets us into Satan and the government, the beast, and the second beast, the Antichrist spirit, and the number of a name with Nebuchadnezzar, 666, different things like that. So we haven't gotten there, but that's, all of those people are being addressed. Everybody on earth falls into those things. Um, Babylon's going to fall regardless. Okay, amen. It says, so killing the king will result in Babylon or America falling. Um, America is just a continuation of the same thing. Really, when you get to America, America is still under the position of Rome, and part of the 10 toes or the 10 horns, that were messed up, and that this 11th horn that knocked three of the horns out of position in Daniel chapter 7, um, we're dealing with. Revelation is a continuation. You got 7 heads, 10 horns, right? 10 tribes, 7 heads. So 7 heads. You've got Kemet, Assyria, Babylon, Kemet, Assyria, Babylon, um, Medo-Persians, uh, Greeks, Romans breaking to 2 feet or with 10 toes, east-west, 10 tribes, 10 horns, three of the horns plucked out by this eighth horn. You have this, or 11th horn, this 11th horn being the Vatican, which has Justinian and Theodora help him out and kill all 3 tribes completely. 7 of the tribes exist still today who tried to follow in their footsteps. You have the clay and the iron mixed together, right? Which becomes Christianity. Um, Original views of the Torah tied with views of Norse theology, pagan theology, um, Roman theology, Italian theology, a lot of stuff, right? And being mixed together and saying we'll just make all these things work together. It's the same. It's a continuation of the same thing. The 1,260 days, which translates to 1,260 years, which starts from when the Roman Catholic Church said that they officially started the date that they said they officially used the Justinian decree to be able to have power. You go 1,260 years past that, you get to what is it, 1798, is it? And you get to 1798, and you see very quickly that 1798 is when the Pope killed off, and then later on it come back, just like that eighth head or that seventh head. It says one of the heads seemed like it had a mortal blow, but somehow, some way that head came to life. We're not there yet, but it's a continuation, right? And we'll get a little deeper into some of that stuff even tomorrow. But once again, who shall be able to stand is the question that we're left with at the end of this. Not how long will everybody's no. Who shall be able to stand? What is it that it's going to take to make you legally, uh, make it legally acceptable for you to stand, for you to be in a position? A thought process is. You said the United States of America is Mystery Babylon. Um, it's attached to Babylon. Everybody keeps saying, "Who's Babylon? Who's Babylon?" Because they usually talk about the woman who's riding on the beast. That's usually why we had that conversation. Who's Babylon? And they'll say that the woman has to be Jezebel, and therefore this Jezebel spirit has to be on the beast, or on the beast, and this beast has to be Babylon, and so who is Babylon? Who is Babylon? Babylon is part of the same serpent. Babylon is part of the same beast. All the world powers, these major world powers we're talking about, basically break into seven. And when you break them into seven, and you break and you see all seven of them working together, America, like once again, we think that we think too much as far as like countries and stuff. We think too much as far as America's different than England. England's different than China. China's different than Russia. But all those places I just mentioned to you, they're all republics. So they're the same thing. They all do business together. As much as they would make you want to believe different, right? They do business together. They make money off of each other. They give you the laws of the land. If one place says you can't travel it because we say this, that, and whatever, then the next place will say you can't travel unless you do this, that, or whatever. They all are working together as one. And so because of nebula, right, coming through again, pole shift causing earthquakes and storms, 2012 vibes. Um, Yeah, but I mean, you could get into some of that stuff, but the reality is that Matthew 24 sets us up for that. Remember, Revelation is not a one-off, so you can look at other places and see what's going on. Yashua talked about Revelation in Matthew 24, and he continued the conversation with John, who was there at the original conversation in Matthew 24. And in that conversation, he made the point to say, hey, there are going to be wars and rumors of wars. Don't pay attention to that. That's not the end. People are going to tell you it's the end, but it's not. He said it's going to be earthquakes and there are going to be floods and all that stuff. People are going to say this is the end of it. He said that's not the end. He said there's going to be people who are going to come in my name and say that they're me. He said don't listen to them, right? Make sure you study so that you comprehend what my authority, what my shem, what my name actually is. He says what you need to be aware of, though, is that once one interpretation of the original Torah, or God, or what we call Bible, once that one interpretation is preached throughout the entirety of the earth, he says, then I'm coming back. He said, so all the other stuff that people are going to get into, he said, that's not my argument, right? So he said, if people want you to get into, hey, the fact that there's a World War III, remember it was on World War III like a couple years ago or last year, whatever it was, World War III is going to hit. He said, that's not my argument. That ain't got nothing to do with me because that's not a sign that I'm coming back. He said the thing you need to be worried about, he said, if it's on us. He said, basically, if you want me to come back, you got to preach this word. Because we're in an interdependent relationship. We've talked to say all these things we've been talking about, they come together. We're not in a dependent relationship where we're totally dependent on him and he's totally dependent on us. We're not in a independent relationship where we don't need him and he doesn't need us. He's decided to set this up where this is interdependence. So you got some things. It's a covenant. A covenant is if you do, then I'll do. So if you do what you're supposed to do, then he'll do what he's supposed to do. If he does what he's supposed to do, then we're supposed to do what we're supposed to do. And he says, that's why people don't want to talk about law and self accountability and governance and all this stuff. Because at the end of the day, you got a responsibility. If you want your community to change, you need to preach a word that causes change. Uh, Omegazin, I guess, said Omegazin says, God decides free will child to decide they don't want abuse is less important than free will of abusers. God decides. I think I know what you're trying to get at. I know you're only limited to how many characters you can write. God decides free will child to decide they don't want abuse is less important than free will of abusers. No, free will is free will. Um, and if you're saying that he should take free will of one person to make sure that he protects others or whatever, then you're saying that he should make everybody robots. Everybody has the free will to do whatever they want. Matter of fact, that's law. Period. That's why we do law and case study. Um, you have free will to go to prison or not if you do something wrong. Did you know that? You can sign a document. So there's people that shouldn't go to jail, but they sign documentation. When they get there, they don't read it over. And when you don't read it over and know what you're signing, then you can sign your life away. Right? You have free will to whatever. Um, if your thing is like sin should have never entered in. The only reason sin enters in, if that's where we're going, because usually that's pretty much where we're headed to. We can get whatever route we want to go to, but let's just go ahead and get to the point of it. Um, Not trying to rush you. I'm just saying we might as well get to the crux of the matter, right? If the whole goal is to say that Yah doesn't really care about free will because blah blah, well, like if free will is the whole reason why sin even enters in, there should have never been any such thing as sin. If you're going off of what you're talking about, we got to keep it in context. That even getting to a place to where there can be an abuser and a non-abuser is because that somebody decided that they needed to be in a position of Elohim. If they decided like everything's cool and I don't even have to address sin, I don't have to know about sin, right? But you have a choice. If you want to know about sin, you have to know sin to know about sin. You have to touch it to know about it. You didn't have to ever know about it, and you didn't have to ever experience death, and you didn't have to ever experience abuse, right? So our thing is to be like, it's his fault. But if he was going to make you in his image, he's not a robot. And he can sin, but he never has, and he never will. Right? He has the free will to sin, but if he sins, everything that he's ever spoken is a lie. So he can't be a liar. If you speak, remember the word, like, or maybe you weren't on with this because I don't recognize the name. The word universe literally means a verse, spoken sentence. Somebody had to speak a sentence into existence. The universe is a single spoken sentence. It's a bar, it's a half a bar, so to speak. The universe is a single spoken sentence. The second that the person who spoke the sentence lies, then he, by definition, is a liar, which means the universe is a lie, which means it cannot exist. So he has to keep his word, right? But he has the ability to lie. All right, well, let me say he has the ability. I don't even know. See, we gotta be careful with these words because you feel guilty about it. But put it like this: he has the choice to lie if he wanted, right? But he knows that the second that he lies is the second that the universe can't exist. So he can't lie and the universe exists at the same time. But but he has free will to do so. Well, the same thing is like you have free will, right? Because you're made in his image. You have free will to do something that's causes sin. Sin just means to miss the mark, by the way. So if people just keep missing the mark longer and longer and longer over time, you get worse and worse and worse atrocities, right? So you have at any time the ability to have free will to make whatever decisions you want. And when those decisions come, they're decisions that are going to affect you and your children and your children's children and your children's children's children and your children's 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 children, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to the point to where we're dealing with things still. Now, for us to say that that's Elohim's fault, I guess that's for you to decide. That's you more so just being like, well, I feel like he should have made me a robot and I wouldn't have had the experience with any of these things. But if you were a robot, I mean, what would you be human? You know, there's a lot more to that. Basically, hey, put me in the matrix, or let me take let me take the red pill, or let me just chill on the blue pill. you know, basically like the choice was given to Adam and Eve, blue pill or red pill. Adam and Eve could have taken blue pill, or like basically they could have taken the blue pill and stayed like basically been like, hey, I don't need to have any free will. Whatever you say goes. Or I had a red pill. Now, here's the thing about the red pill. This is like one of the things about the Matrix, and once again, us having comprehension, because even the Matrix was written by an Israelite woman. A lot of people don't know that, right? It was an Israelite woman who actually got her money back for it. She actually wrote, I think she wrote the Terminator too, as a Terminator as well, not Terminator 2, but Terminator as well. But if you look at the story of the Matrix, remember that Will Smith was supposed to play the character because Will Smith's character is supposed to be Neo, or well, now it's Keanu Reeves' character, but Neo was supposed to be an Israelite, was supposed to be black. He's supposed to be the one, right? One, Neo, changing to flip the letters around one, right? Um, and what's supposed to happen is that basically people have this weird concept that the computers didn't want anybody to, all computers, right, are negative, right? Once again, like we say, all white people are something and this and that, whatever, right? So we do this weird thing because we're not thinking on different levels. We just look at the basics of it and we only get the icing of the story. If you look at the story correctly, what you'll see is that the blue pill and the red pill is not just a humanity thing, but there are programs, right? There's software, there's hardware that's actually fighting for human beings to be free as well. Now, I haven't seen the last Matrix, even though I've read and heard and seen critics talk about a lot of it. But you know, if you look at the first three, and really the first one, because that's the one she wrote, you'll see that the computers were trying. There were computers trying to help people too. Some computers, right? So these systems had free will. We think that because they were computers, that all of them had no free will. No, remember, even like when you start getting into like Sati, the little girl, and was it part three or whatever, when he wakes up in the train station or whatever, or you start looking at all these different things, you'll see that that basically like these systems all have free will as well. So even though human beings are being given the choice of blue or red pill, everything, all the systems have the choice of blue or red pill. Some of them are anti-humans and want them dead. Some of them, like the Oracle, are trying to help them. Some of them could care less as long as like their family's taken care of. Matter of fact, what's his name? In the beginning, in the first one, you think that Hugo Weaving's character, Agent Smith, you think that Agent Smith is like working for the computers. And I remember he takes his earpiece out and he takes it out so that he's unplugged from the Matrix himself. So he can be unplugged too. He's just not a human being unplugged, but he can be unplugged too. He chooses and has been created and chooses to do what he's created to do, but he doesn't have to. He takes the headset out and he says, hey, I hate it here. I want the information designed so that the war will be finished. If the war is finished, I don't have to do what I'm called to do, what I was created to do anymore. I'm sick of doing what I'm created to do. That was his character's thing. That was like the surprise. A lot of people just miss that, or you kind of feel it, but you don't really like get it. Like that moment was supposed to be like a big aha moment because it's telling you, yo, hold up. Like this dude right here, he doesn't work for the Matrix. Like he works for the Matrix, but he doesn't want to work for the Matrix. Like, so wait a minute, computers, like, but they did it really because that was supposed to be the only movie, so you didn't see it popping into these other things that it goes into later on. But they were telling you like everybody has a choice. Just like angels have choices and they're fallen angels, right? Like it's telling you the blue and red pill concept is not just for the human being, it's for everything in eternity. And so you're having you're having this fight go on for Zion, right? You know, Mount Zion, Zion. You're having this fight going on for Zion, but you're also having this fight going on within the computer systems itself, to where it's like, hey, everybody should have free will, and we shouldn't be trying to take away people's free will. That's the whole. That's like the major part of the movie, and then it ends. The first movie ends. The other two they just put on. That's why the other two a lot of people don't like because it goes somewhere different because that's not what was originally intended, right? But the end ends with this Messiah, Neo, the one speaking to the computers through the payphone, right? And telling the computers through the payphone, hey, we're not really going to deal. You know, I'm going to give them what a choice. He doesn't say I'm going to force these people out. He doesn't say, hey, I'm powerful enough. I could just make the whole system explode. He doesn't say like he says, no, I'm going to show them what's possible. And I'm going to give them a choice. I'm going to let them see that they can do something that's supernatural, goes outside of the matrix. He says, but the choice is still theirs. Because I can't violate free will. If I violate free will, then I'm not who I'm supposed to be. Because he's supposed to be the one. He's supposed to be the Messiah. He's supposed to represent something higher than himself. Even if he does have the power to destroy or just say everybody could be free right now, that means that he's making a decision for others and he's not letting them make a decision for themselves. No problem, Rude. Right? So that's why who's going to be able to stand is going to be an important question that we get into tomorrow. But when people talk about free will, we usually not talking about it from the proper place. Yeah, Ife, yeah, all part of the iron and clay, world government system, religions, Babylon. Tulip said I had a scary vision of the two trees, nothing on their branches, and I had to bring people to them. Hmm. Yeah, I don't know what nothing on the branches would signify. That's interesting. Because the two trees, as far as the Bible are concerned, the two trees are talking about Moses and Elijah. Or at least that's how we pronounce the names now. Um, I'm not sure which two, and you having to bring people to him. I guess you could say, in a sense, Moses is dealing with, you know, somebody who originally took the promises and kind of wrote out what we now know as the law, for the first time, and with the help of Aaron, and then through Elijah, you have somebody who doesn't experience death. Matter of fact, both of their bodies were translated. Both of their bodies didn't get buried. Moses' body might have been buried in the mountains. I'm not sure, but it's the way. No. Moses basically died in the mountains. His body is taken, and Elijah, just gets lifted up in there. Both signifying extremely strong prophecies. Both signifying times that we saw the heavens actually open up, things like that, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, thank you, Rude Boy. Yeah, you said free will. Adam chose forbidden fruit, sin entered into the world. Yeah, there is no such thing as free will with Elohim wisdom of Solomon. Oh, wisdom of Solomon 6:17-19. I mean, if there's no such thing as free will, then you don't have dominion. I mean, I get where you're going, but that's, choose as you believe. This haven't been led as we believe, as we believe the power of will can lead you into sin. Amen. Can you make this live shareable when complete so I can rewatch? Yeah, we'll have it on YouTube. I'm literally, people who've been with us for a while know this. I literally have not been still for like about a month. Well, no, for like 2 weeks. I have not been in the same place more than like a couple days. So once I can actually be in the same place and sit down, I'll have like a couple weeks. I'll definitely have a lot of this stuff out for you guys. There's a lot of stuff that's literally on YouTube that just needs for me to do a couple last things to it, and then it can be posted. And I just haven't had the time. As you can see, still traveling. Had planned on finally being in position in place for this rising, and just not working out. So he said, "You serious? I'm talking about a movie." Yeah, I talk about many different things, that help people to be able to see things, parables, things like, hey, let's talk about sowing seed so you can comprehend, how seed goes or whatever. And if you can tell me, and before just using ad hominem to make fun of somebody and say that I don't know anything I'm talking about or whatever, like, see if what I'm making says makes sense. Does it match up? Does it line up? Now, you're somebody who's of the mindset there's no such thing as free will. So, but if you're on here to do ad hominem, that's somebody that's damaging to people, versus us like making the main thing and working together. So I appreciate you. And I honor your decisions and your ability to believe whatever you want. Um, but I just don't have to have it on here to where it's not a free space for people to be able to speak their mind and not be made fun of. We should learn how to make the main thing the main thing. Much love and respect to you, though. Let's see. It's the inverse parallel universe. Okay. I guess so. Yeah, inverse parallel. I had to catch up with the inverse parallel universe. Okay. Okay. Um, great news we preach to all inhabitants of the earth. hmm I'm sorry, this thing just made me switch up. Oh, that metaverse thing, you have to be careful with that for sure. Hey, praise him. Is it herbal? Is it herbal essence? Is that what the name is? I don't know if I caught that. I think so. Um, but yeah, so it's important that we get all those things in. So tomorrow, we'll definitely be diving into Revelation chapter 7, and we'll definitely be having conversation with this. You said, who is the sword of Elohim? The sword of Elohim is the word of Yah. It's the word of Elohim. So it's not a who, even unless you're saying that the word is a living word, but out of the mouth of Yahshua is the sword, the two-edged sword. The two-edged sword would be the word, right? Same kind of word that's talked about the sword that's described in Ephesians chapter 6. It tells you there that the sword is the word of Yah, right? And we'll need to keep that so we can figure out who will be able to stand. That's what we'll talk about tomorrow. So I'm gonna get at you guys' way for today. Thank you so much. Oh, herbal science. Okay. Okay, herbal science. Okay, cool. Yeah, my wife is a herbalist as well. Speaking of which, first of all, we give all praise to the Most High. Once again, our prayer is that you not only have, heard this, but you also begin to do this word. as well. So we're thankful and grateful for each and every one of you, and we're thankful and grateful for you guys for being on today. Um, we are looking at doing some great things together. Don't forget the classes is coming up January 31st. Classes Hebrew characters. Sorry, Hebrew characters, basic Hebrew, sovereignty 1, sovereignty 2, natural medicine 2, basic French, and um, and cryptocurrency. That'll be coming up for this semester, and that'll be starting January 31st on Zoom. So if you'd like to be able to get information on that, you can. If you're on TikTok, you can, or if you're on YouTube watching this later on, you can always go to TikTok and figure out, you can just look in the bio for more information on places to look for us. You can also look in the website. We have our link tree there. Go on link tree and you can figure out where you can check us out on many different platforms. You can always look for us at hashtag FindKofi, hashtag FindKofi. That includes our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel name is hashtag FindKofi. Please check out my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. She's a herbalist, she's a healer, she's a chemist, she's a biologist by degree, by the way, for those that need that little caveat. She is she has she has many different tinctures, things to help with natural healing. She does one-on-one stuff as well. For stuff as far as tinctures, the tinctures are um, or the tincture of the month for this month is I Am Immune, which is definitely going to deal with a lot of healing and a lot of stuff dealing with COVID and a lot of stuff dealing with oxygen, blood flow. So feel free to get in contact with us about that. Um, you can text us at the number that's above and keep us in prayer, like I said, as we try to eventually get on the road here and finish up these trips. We will have our meetings on Shabbat coming up, so don't forget about that. Um, yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. We'll be back on tomorrow. Um, until I get in a stationary place, I'm not sure about the evening session. I've been trying to get back on 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern New York time. I would love to be on tonight to do a makeup. I'm just not sure where we'll be, what signal will be like, whatever. So I will try my best to do a makeup session for the evening at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern New York time, but I can't guarantee you anything right now until we get to our next destination and we're finally settled for at least a couple weeks. Um, Once again, if you guys come up with stuff, we have different people that have been asking about job stuff that they can do from home. If any of you have some stuff that you know that maybe you can speak well of somebody, or you can do, you can kind of put a good word in for somebody as far as doing something like that, let us know, and we'd love to be able to have some people get in contact with you. A lot of people are tired of going to a physical location, especially with people trying to force you to get a shot or do this, that, whatever. So feel free to let us know if you have any information on that. I've been trying to do research, but really I haven't been able to research much of anything outside of what I can listen to while being on the road. So, and as you guys even saw with the live today, traveling, trying to take care of stuff for traveling has been kind of all consuming these last couple of weeks. So prayerfully by tomorrow, if not then, bare minimum Friday, that'll be taken care of. Also, Friday in the rising, we're gonna try to make sure that we make up for Monday's session since I missed the early riser session for Monday. We'll try to do our early riser makeup session on Friday. So if you have questions, Q&A, we'll just make a Q&A whenever we need to do a makeup session. We'll just keep it to Q&A. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, have them ready for Friday. 6:30 a.m. Eastern is when I'll be on. 6:45 a.m. Eastern New York time is when everybody can when we're going to start the actual question and answer session, and then we should be back on track for Monday. So thank you all. We appreciate you. Contact us. People said you had questions and stuff like that you'd like to go deeper on. Feel free to contact us, connect with us. Thank you so much. Thank you for your comprehension, your understanding. Um, that winter weather, us being stuck in it, and then that tire issue, and then having to get the tire fixed the day after that kind of messed us up. We're like 3 days outside of what the plan was. Nevertheless, thank you all for your attendance, for being on. Thank you for your gifts. Thank you for your donations for the coat drive and everything that just happened again. We should be having, we'll see. It looks like we'll be having one more at the end of this month. So thank you for everything that you're helping us out with. Those of you who are in different locations, please, ma'am, please, sir. I'll definitely say the soonest ones, those who are in Georgia, Those of who in the well, those of you in the southeast region, so that's like Virginia down to Georgia, the northeast region. That's and we'll be focusing on like I guess Baltimore to Baltimore to Northern Virginia, and then those of you in all the regions. But then, yeah, I think right now those are the two soonest that we know for sure. So just kind of keep your ear like a ear out for us, or look for some text or different things where we'll be seeing what dates everybody can try and get together and do some things, and we'll try to make sure that we make that happen ASAP. Thank you so much. We appreciate you all as always. This has been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken until we have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again. Please remember, as always, that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Yeah, Sister Betty, I did see your question. I was going to text you and Sister Sharnicia, I believe, and see about moving, the possibility of moving it and see what dates and times would work for you guys, because we still got to make sure we get all four of those for you guys in before we get to the classes. So just let us know. Um, and we thank you so much. We appreciate you all. And keep grinding, keep focusing, keep loving, and keep praying. We'll talk to you guys soon. Peace. Later today.